Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that, above the familiar sky we know, where the stars appear so small and peaceful, there are forces unfolding that exist almost beyond the limits of human imagination. There are stars that die in violent explosions so powerful that, for a brief time, their light can outshine an entire galaxy. There are neutron stars only a few dozen kilometers across, yet carrying an enormous amount of mass within them. There are black holes that quietly tear entire stars apart. Pairs of black holes colliding and causing space-time itself to ripple, and bursts of energy from distant places billions of light years away that still find their way to Earth. But perhaps the strangest thing is not the sheer power of these events. It is the fact that all of this chaos helps create life. The elements within our bodies were once forged inside generations of stars that died long ago. Heavy elements, such as gold and platinum, may carry the traces of collisions between neutron stars. Explosions that seem to represent nothing but destruction can scatter matter throughout space. And millions of years later, from those clouds of dust and gas, new stars and planets can emerge. Through the lens of Carl Jung, we might see the universe as a vast mirror of the human mind. Within each of us, there are also dark places, broken pieces, and inner disturbances that we may not immediately understand. Yet, just like the universe, collapse is not always the end. Sometimes, it is the quiet preparation for something new. Tonight, we will journey through the most extreme events in the universe. From explosions that last only a few seconds, to violent magnetars, enormous black holes, and cosmic collisions capable of reshaping entire galaxies. This is a journey driven by curiosity, but also a journey toward peace. You are listening to Channel Name, where we explore history, science, and the deepest mysteries of our world before drifting into sleep. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Now, let your body relax. Take a slow breath in and breathe out gently. And as the night around you gradually grows quieter, let us begin our journey into the most extreme places in the universe. Places where destruction and creation continue to unfold silently in the darkness. The most terrifying explosions in the universe. When night falls and the last lights of the city gradually fade, we often have the feeling that the universe above us has fallen into absolute silence. The stars become nothing more than tiny, distant points of light, seemingly motionless against the vast darkness of the sky. But that stillness is only an illusion created by our human eyes. Across distances so immense that light can take millions, or even billions, of years to reach Earth, the universe is still undergoing events so violent that they are almost impossible to imagine. Some stars end their lives in enormous explosions. Some neutron stars collide, releasing tremendous amounts of energy and creating heavy elements. Some magnetars suddenly unleash energy stored within their powerful magnetic fields. And there are gamma-ray bursts, incredibly intense flashes of gamma radiation that last only a very short time, yet can become some of the brightest sources of radiation we have ever observed from the distant universe. What is astonishing is that some of these events may unfold within seconds, milliseconds, or within intervals so brief that human beings could barely comprehend them, yet their consequences can remain for far longer. A stellar explosion may leave behind an expanding remnant that continues moving through space for thousands of years. A neutron-star merger can scatter heavy elements into the interstellar environment, where, much later, those atoms may become part of stars, planets, and perhaps even living beings capable of looking up at the night sky. In the universe, therefore, the duration of an event and the duration of its consequences can be completely different. A moment may be incredibly brief, while what it leaves behind can continue across countless generations. If we look at this phenomenon through a lens inspired by Carl Jung, we can find an image remarkably close to our own inner lives. Jung devoted much of his work to the deeper regions of the mind, where things that have been suppressed do not simply disappear, but continue to exist in different forms. And perhaps the universe reminds us of something similar. Not every collapse is an ending. A star can die, but its death does not necessarily mean that its material disappears. Instead, it can become part of a process of transformation. What once belonged to a star is released, scattered throughout space, mixed with the surrounding material, and eventually becomes the raw material for something entirely new. This makes cosmic explosions beautiful in a very particular way. They are not beautiful because they are peaceful. They are beautiful because, within their violence, there is a deeper order. A supernova is not simply a star exploding. It can be the final moment of an old structure, and, at the same time, the beginning of an entirely new chain of transformation. A neutron star is not merely the incredibly dense remnant of a dead star. It is evidence that matter can exist in extreme states that human intuition can barely comprehend. A magnetar, with its extraordinarily powerful magnetic field, reminds us that size does not determine strength. An object only a few dozen kilometers across can produce signals detectable from tens of thousands of light years away. And then there are mergers between compact objects, where incredibly dense bodies spiral toward one another through space. During their final moments, part of their energy can travel outward as gravitational waves, causing space-time itself to ripple. Those ripples may cross billions of light-years before they finally reach Earth as an almost imperceptible signal. An event that occurred when Earth itself did not yet exist can leave behind a message that human beings, billions of years later, finally become capable of hearing. There is something strangely gentle about that idea. We often think that something can only matter if we witness it at the exact moment it happens. But the universe does not work that way. Light can arrive late. Gravitational waves can arrive late. Elements created in a distant cosmic collision can take billions of years before becoming part of a planet. And the memory of the universe seems to be preserved in matter, in light, and in signals so incredibly faint that we can barely detect them. Perhaps human beings are like this too. A moment of sadness may last only a few minutes, yet its influence can remain within the mind for years. A failure that seems to have destroyed everything can sometimes become the beginning of an entirely different path. A small change in the way we see ourselves can quietly shape an entirely new life. In the spirit of Jungian psychology, growth does not always mean eliminating the darkness within us. It can also mean learning to recognize it, face it, and transform it. And when we look toward the night sky, we encounter a vast cosmic version of that same process. The universe never promises that everything will remain forever. Quite the opposite. It shows us that every form eventually changes. Stars are born, mature, and die. Galaxies interact and evolve. Black holes merge. Clouds of gas collapse and give birth to new generations of stars. What we call an ending may sometimes be nothing more than a point of transition, from which matter begins another story. So tonight, as we begin our journey through the most extreme events in the universe, you do not need to remember every enormous number or every complicated scientific term. Just listen. Allow your imagination to drift gently along with the light of distant stars. Imagine an explosion that occurred long before humanity existed, yet whose light is only now reaching us. Imagine a star disappearing, leaving behind elements that may one day become part of an entirely new world. And within that vastness, allow yourself to become small, not small in the sense of being meaningless, but small in a way that frees you from the need to control everything. Because when we look into the infinite reaches of space, we realize that our lives are only brief moments. And precisely because they are brief, they become precious. Now, relax your shoulders, let your breathing slow down, and allow the darkness to surround you. far away, the most terrifying explosions in the universe are still taking place. They flash brightly through the darkness. They ripple through space-time. They scatter matter across the cosmos. And then, after all that violence, the universe returns to silence. Tonight, we will step into that silence and explore the most extreme boundaries of the universe. And perhaps, along the way, we will also come to understand a little more about the quiet transformations taking place within ourselves. Supernovae. The brilliant death of stars. Some deaths arrive gently. A leaf falling onto the ground. A candle slowly going dark. A day coming to an end beneath the colors of sunset. But in the universe, death can sometimes take a completely different form. Some stars end their lives in one of the most violent events nature can produce, a supernova. And the strange thing is that, from our perspective, this death does not look like disappearance. It looks like an enormous light burning brighter for one final moment, sending its brilliance through the darkness of space, and then leaving behind particles of matter that will continue their journey long after the star itself is gone. Imagine a massive star, quietly existing somewhere in the depths of space. For millions, perhaps tens of millions of years, it lives through a delicate balance. Gravity is constantly pulling its matter inward, while the energy produced by nuclear fusion inside its core creates pressure pushing outward. These opposing forces keep the star in a relatively stable state. From a distance, everything appears peaceful, but deep inside, an endless struggle is taking place. Eventually, the appropriate fuel within the core begins to run out. For stars massive enough, nuclear fusion can produce increasingly heavy elements until the core becomes dominated by iron and iron group nuclei. This marks a crucial turning point. Fusing iron no longer provides the energy needed to maintain the star's balance. As the pressure supporting the core weakens, gravity begins to take control, and then the core collapses, not over thousands of years, not over hundreds of years, but within an extraordinarily brief period of time. Matter deep inside the star is compressed with unimaginable force. The outer layers respond to this collapse and are violently expelled into space. An enormous amount of energy is released. Layers of matter that once belonged to the star are hurled outward at tremendous speeds, creating a vast cloud expanding through interstellar space. This is the moment when a star dies. And, at the same time, another part of the universe begins to be born. If we look at this phenomenon through the lens of Carl Jung, the image of a supernova evokes a profound symbol, the death of an old form, making room for a new form of existence. In Jungian psychology, human beings do not mature by keeping everything inside themselves exactly as it was. There are beliefs, identities, roles, and layers of psychological protection that eventually need to change. The crust of a neutron star is believed to be extraordinarily rigid, while deep inside, there may exist superfluid matter, a peculiar state in which matter exhibits unusual quantum properties. Imagine, for a moment, standing at the edge of such a world. There would be no familiar landscape, no mountains, no oceans, no forests, and no gentle atmosphere drifting above the surface. Instead, you would be looking at an object whose gravity is so powerful that ordinary intuition begins to fail. Time, space, matter, and energy behave under conditions far beyond anything we experience on Earth. A neutron star is, in many ways, a reminder that nature does not have to follow the rules of our imagination. Some neutron stars rotate incredibly rapidly. These are known as pulsars. As they spin, beams of electromagnetic radiation can sweep across space like the beam of a cosmic lighthouse. If one of those beams happens to point toward Earth, our instruments may detect a remarkably regular series of pulses. Imagine that rhythm traveling across the darkness. A pulse, then another, and another, a signal arriving from an object thousands of light years away, repeating with extraordinary precision. There is something almost meditative about that rhythm. The universe can be violent, chaotic, and unpredictable. Yet somewhere in the darkness, a neutron star may continue turning again and again, sending its quiet signal through space. From the perspective of Carl Jung, we might see this as a symbolic image of something within ourselves that continues to exist beneath the noise of everyday life. Our conscious minds are constantly changing. Our thoughts change. Our emotions change. Our circumstances change. The roles we play in society change. But beneath all of this, there may be deeper patterns that remain remarkably persistent. Jung believed that beneath conscious awareness lies a deeper psychological world filled with instincts, memories, archetypes, and unconscious material. We do not always see these forces directly, yet they can influence the way we experience our lives. A pulsar offers a beautiful metaphor. Above the surface, everything may appear quiet, but deep within, something continues to move. Something continues to rotate. Something continues to send a signal. And perhaps our own inner world is sometimes like that. Even when we believe we have forgotten something, part of it may still remain within us. Even when we think we have moved beyond an experience, it may continue to influence the way we respond to the world. Even when we appear calm on the outside, there may be an entire universe moving beneath the surface. But not every neutron star becomes a pulsar in a way that we can detect. Some are known for something even more dramatic. They can possess extraordinarily powerful magnetic fields. These objects are called magnetars. A magnetar is a type of neutron star whose magnetic field is among the strongest known in the universe. The numbers involved are difficult to comprehend. Its magnetic field can be trillions of times stronger than Earth's magnetic field, and occasionally, a magnetar can undergo a sudden release of magnetic energy, producing an enormous burst of radiation. The event may last only a fraction of a second, yet during that brief moment, an object only a few dozen kilometers across can release an extraordinary amount of energy. Once again, the universe offers us a strange contradiction. Something incredibly small can possess unimaginable power. Something that appears almost insignificant from a cosmic perspective can produce an event detectable across vast distances. And perhaps there is another lesson hidden here. Human beings often judge themselves by what can be seen from the outside. We compare our achievements, our appearance, our careers, our possessions, our social status. We look at the visible surface and assume that the surface tells us everything. But depth cannot always be measured from appearance. A quiet person may carry enormous emotional strength. Someone who seems fragile may have survived experiences we know nothing about. A person who says very little may possess an extraordinarily rich inner world. Like the neutron star, the most important things may sometimes be hidden beneath the surface. And perhaps this is one reason the image of a neutron star fits so naturally into a Jungian reflection. The journey towards psychological wholeness is not about becoming larger in the eyes of the world. It is about becoming deeper, more conscious, more integrated, more honest about what exists within us. The neutron star has lost the enormous outer layers that once surrounded its core. What remains is extraordinarily compact. There is something almost poetic about that transformation. The star becomes smaller, but in another sense, it becomes more concentrated. Perhaps human beings experience something similar as they grow older. Life gradually strips away certain illusions. We may lose the need to impress everyone. We may stop trying to satisfy every expectation. We may become less interested in proving that we are successful. And slowly, beneath all those layers, something quieter begins to emerge. Who are you when you no longer need to perform? Who are you when nobody is watching? Who are you when the persona, the image you present to the world, can finally be set aside? Jung's idea of individuation points toward this movement inward, not toward perfection, not toward becoming someone else, but toward becoming more fully aware of who we already are. A neutron star does not need to pretend to be a normal star. It has already passed through its transformation. The old form is gone. Something new remains. And perhaps that is worth remembering when we find ourselves going through periods of change. There may be moments when life feels as though everything familiar is collapsing. A relationship ends. A career changes. A dream disappears. A belief that once gave us certainty no longer makes sense. At first, it can feel like destruction, but sometimes, what is disappearing is not our entire identity. It is simply a structure that we have outgrown. Like a star collapsing under gravity, we may experience a period of intense compression. Old assumptions are forced inward. Old identities are questioned, and eventually, something different may emerge. Not necessarily something bigger, perhaps something deeper, something more authentic, something that no longer requires so much energy to maintain. And tonight, you do not need to solve any of those questions. You do not need to understand every part of yourself. You do not need to know what your next transformation will look like. For now, simply rest. Imagine that far beyond the Earth, a neutron star continues to spin through the darkness. A tiny sphere compared with the vastness of the universe. Dense beyond imagination. Silent from our perspective. And yet, somewhere within that darkness, its rhythm continues, round and round, again and again, sending its faint signal across the enormous distance between the stars. Perhaps you can allow your breathing to find its own rhythm too. Slowly breathe in and gently breathe out. You do not have to carry everything tonight. You do not have to understand everything tonight. Let the questions remain unanswered for a while. Let the mind become quiet. The universe has been unfolding for billions of years. There is no need for you to solve your entire life before morning. Some things need time. Some things need silence. And some things need nothing more tonight than rest. So let your shoulders relax. Let your breathing become slower. And imagine that somewhere in the distant darkness, a neutron star continues its quiet rotation. A reminder that even after collapse, something can remain, something can transform, something can become deeper. And sometimes, what survives the darkness is not the person we once were, but the person we are finally becoming. Good night. Let the universe keep turning. And for tonight, let yourself simply rest. It is difficult to imagine that the same object could contain a crust so extraordinarily rigid, while deep inside, matter may behave according to such strange quantum rules. And perhaps it is precisely this contrast that makes the neutron star such a beautiful symbol for our inner lives. From the outside, a person may appear calm, strong, and almost motionless. Yet beneath that silence, there may be an incredibly complex world in constant motion. We often judge one another by the surface, by appearance, success, words, or whatever can be easily seen. But Jung continually directed attention toward the inner world, where unnamed things may quietly continue to exist. Perhaps that is why, when we listen to the story of a neutron star at night, we are not simply learning about astrophysics. We are looking at a metaphor for ourselves. There are periods in life when everything we once believed in seems to collapse. A job disappears. A relationship ends. A plan fails. An image of ourselves that we once worked so hard to maintain suddenly no longer fits. Those moments can make us feel as though we are like a star that has suddenly lost its entire sky. But collapse is not always the end. In the universe, after a violent collapse, a neutron star can emerge. It is far smaller than the star that came before it, yet it carries within itself an entirely new structure. From a Jungian perspective, this can be seen as an image that resembles the process of individuation, the gradual process through which a person becomes more fully themselves by confronting the deeper parts of the psyche, not by returning to who they once were, but by forming a new inner structure after the upheavals of life. So when we think about a neutron star, let that image slowly pass through your mind. A star that once shone brilliantly, then it collapsed. Its former light disappeared. Yet in the place where there seemed to be nothing but darkness, a new world was formed. Perhaps our own lives can be like that. What we lose is sometimes not the entire story. Sometimes, collapse is simply pushing us closer to a core within ourselves that we had never seen before. And just as a neutron star continues to exist quietly within the vastness of space, we too can move through long nights, carrying a strength we never knew we possessed. Now let that image drift a little farther away. A small object moving among the stars, unimaginably dense, silent, yet far from weak. And in that silence, the universe seems to whisper something very simple. Not every ending is a loss. Sometimes, it is the first form of a deeper transformation. Magnetars, the most powerful magnets in the universe. Let us continue our journey into some of the deepest and most extreme places in the universe, where things that seem impossible can become reality. After a massive star dies and leaves behind a neutron star, the story does not necessarily end. Among these stellar remnants are objects that are even more extreme. They are called magnetars, neutron stars possessing magnetic fields so powerful that they almost exceed human intuition. They are tiny, isolated, and located thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, of light years away. Yet a disturbance occurring on their surface can send an enormous burst of energy across space and leave detectable traces around Earth. If we look at magnetars through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, we can discover a beautiful image of the inner world. Sometimes our greatest strength does not lie in what we display on the outside, but in the deeper layers that other people cannot see. Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "The greater the contrast, the greater the potential. An object only a few dozen kilometers across can contain an extraordinary amount of power. That contrast is precisely what makes the magnetar so fascinating." A magnetar is, first of all, a neutron star. It forms after the violent death of a massive star, when the stellar core collapses and matter is compressed to an extraordinary density. But what makes a magnetar different is its magnetic field. Its magnetic field is unimaginably stronger than Earth's. This is not a magnet in the ordinary sense that we could hold in our hands. It is an extreme physical structure created by ultra-dense matter, the star's rotation, and complex processes occurring within its crust and interior. Imagine a world only slightly larger than a city, yet hiding a field of force powerful enough to influence its surroundings across enormous distances. The magnetar reminds us that physical size does not necessarily determine the extent of influence. A tiny object can leave an imprint far greater than its appearance would suggest. This also raises a familiar question in depth psychology. How much do we really know about the strength that exists within ourselves? Human beings are often judged by what can be seen. A quiet person may be considered weak. A calm person may be assumed to have no emotions. Someone who lives quietly can easily be overlooked in a world that constantly rewards noise. But just like a magnetar, a person may carry an entire universe within them that is completely different from what the surface reveals. And then, sometimes, that surface begins to tremble. Scientists believe that disturbances within a magnetar's crust can produce phenomena known as starquakes. Imagine a layer of incredibly rigid matter under enormous stresses from within. At a certain moment, that structure can suddenly shift. Energy accumulated over a long period of time is released. This is an image that feels remarkably close to human life. There are emotions we hold onto for years. There are unnamed sadnesses, memories pushed deep into the unconscious, disappointments we tell ourselves we have forgotten. On the outside, everything may appear normal. We continue working, we continue talking, we continue smiling. Yet inside, there may be a tension that even we do not fully recognize. Jung devoted considerable attention to psychological contents pushed out of conscious awareness. He wrote in Aeon, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, It will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This does not mean that every suppressed emotion will inevitably lead to a psychological explosion, but it reminds us that what remains unrecognized can still influence the way we live. A magnetar tells a similar story through physics. Beneath its apparently quiet surface, enormous forces may be accumulating, and when the structure shifts, that energy can be released through a magnetar flare. Some flares can produce extraordinarily powerful bursts of X-rays and gamma rays. They may last only a very short time, yet the amount of energy released can be immense. An event occurring on an object tens of thousands of light years away can still be detected by instruments here on Earth. That is one of the things that makes the universe so strange and beautiful. Distance does not always prevent a story from being heard. A magnetar may exist somewhere incredibly far away, in the darkness between the stars. We cannot see it with our naked eyes. We cannot travel to it. But when it releases a powerful signal, those photons begin a journey through space. Thousands of years later, they may reach instruments on Earth and tell us that, somewhere in the distant darkness, a star has trembled. And perhaps this is also a beautiful metaphor for the human soul. What happens inside us can sometimes feel completely private, as though no one else could ever know. Yet a glance, a sentence, or a small action can transmit that inner energy to another person. An unresolved wound can affect a relationship. A peace discovered after years of struggle can also spread to the people around us. We often think that we are too small to make a difference, but the magnetar teaches us the opposite. An object only a few dozen kilometers across can send a signal across tens of thousands of light years. In some cases, powerful magnetar flares can even affect Earth's ionosphere. From an object incredibly far away, energy can still interact with the environment of our planet. This reminds us that the universe is not simply a collection of isolated objects. Everything is connected through invisible fields, radiation, and flows of energy. Human psychology can be understood in a similar way. We do not live completely separate from one another. What happens within one person can affect their family, friends, community, and even future generations. A kind word can be remembered for years. An unresolved wound can pass from one person to another. And a person who has found inner peace can create a sense of calm throughout an entire room. That is why the magnetar, despite being an extreme physical phenomenon, can become such a beautiful image. When we reflect upon ourselves, it does not need to be large to be powerful. It does not need to be close to be felt. It does not need to be loud to have an impact. And perhaps, on those nights when we feel small, exhausted, or forgotten by the world, the image of a distant magnetar can remind us that the value of an existence is not determined simply by the size that others can see. Some strengths appear only after a star has died. Some forms of beauty become visible only after collapse. And some of the deepest parts of ourselves can only begin to emerge when we become quiet enough to sit with who we truly are. So tonight, as you prepare to close your eyes, imagine a magnetar drifting silently among the stars. No sound, no hurry, just a tiny world, isolated in the darkness, carrying an immense magnetic field within it. And if one day its crust trembles, its light begins a journey through the darkness, perhaps we are like that too. We do not need to become the largest person in the room. We do not need to prove our strength to the entire world. We only need to understand more deeply what exists within us. Because sometimes, the deepest strength is not the thing that makes others notice us, but the thing that helps us quietly understand ourselves. And in the stillness of tonight, among billions of stars existing silently across the universe, perhaps somewhere a magnetar has just released a burst of light. That light will travel through the darkness for a very long time before reaching wherever it is meant to go. Like a beautiful thought, like a memory, like a quiet part of the soul waiting for us to finally listen. When a black hole tears a star apart, let us journey deeper into the darkness of the universe, to a place where human intuition is almost powerless to imagine what is happening. There are black holes that emit no light, reflect no light, and can remain hidden within the heart of a galaxy for incredibly long periods of time. Yet, sometimes, the universe itself reveals their presence. A star ventures too close, and in a fateful moment, the black hole's gravity begins stretching it into long, glowing streams of hot matter. This phenomenon is known as a tidal disruption event. It is violent, mysterious, and strangely beautiful. And when viewed through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, it raises a profound question. What happens when a structure we once believed was stable is pushed beyond its limits? In depth psychology, Jung often explored the moments when human beings are forced to confront the darkness they can no longer avoid. He wrote in Iron, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Although these words were not written about the universe, they can become a bridge into the story of a black hole, because sometimes it is precisely the invisible forces we cannot see that have the power to transform the entire structure of our lives. An ordinary star exists through a delicate balance between two opposing forces. Gravity is constantly trying to pull matter toward the center, while the energy produced by nuclear reactions within the star creates pressure that resists collapse. For millions, or even billions, of years, this balance allows the star to exist, shine, and drift peacefully through space. But if one day that star comes too close to a black hole, everything changes. The black hole does not need to physically touch the star. It only needs to be close enough. The gravitational force on the side of the star nearest the black hole is stronger than the force on the side farther away. This difference creates tidal forces. One side of the star is pulled more strongly than the other. When the distance becomes small enough, these tidal forces can overcome the star's ability to hold itself together, and then the star begins to stretch. It can no longer maintain the familiar shape of a sphere. Its matter is pulled into long, thin, intensely heated streams that swirl around the black hole. In a single extraordinary moment, a star that once existed as its own world becomes a stream of matter being drawn into an immense gravitational structure. There is something deeply evocative about this image when we think about the human mind. We often build our identity around familiar structures. Our careers, families, achievements, relationships, social roles, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. These structures give us a sense of stability. They make us believe that we know who we are. But sometimes life brings us dangerously close to a psychological black hole, an unexpected loss, a breakup, a failure, an event that causes everything we once considered certain to begin falling apart. In those moments, our familiar structures can start to dissolve, and like a star approaching a black hole, we may feel as though we are being pulled in different directions, no longer knowing where our center truly is. Yet from a Jungian perspective, disintegration does not necessarily mean destruction. It can also be a process of revelation. When old layers are pulled apart, deeper parts of the psyche can begin to emerge. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Becoming who we truly are is sometimes not a process of adding more to ourselves, but of releasing what no longer belongs to us. During a tidal disruption event, the star does not simply disappear immediately. Some of its matter can remain bound to the black hole and form an accretion disk around it. This material moves at enormous speeds, collides, heats up, and releases intense radiation. And here lies the beautiful paradox of the phenomenon. A black hole itself is dark, but when it tears a star apart, the material surrounding it can become so luminous that astronomers can detect the event from enormous distances. Darkness does not produce its own light, but darkness can reveal the brightness of what surrounds it. Perhaps this is also one of the closest images to Jung's concept of the shadow. The shadow within the psyche is not necessarily something evil. It contains those parts of ourselves that we do not want to see, or have not yet learned to recognize. When we are willing to face them, those hidden parts can become sources of profound self-understanding. A person who constantly tries to appear strong may discover that beneath that strength lies a fear of abandonment. Someone who constantly seeks approval may realize that beneath the need for recognition is a feeling of never being good enough. Someone who feels compelled to control everything may discover that beneath that desire for control is a deep fear of helplessness. Just as astronomers cannot directly see a black hole through visible light, we sometimes cannot directly see the deepest parts of our own psyche, but we can observe the traces they leave behind. A black hole can be detected through its effects on the matter around it, and human beings can sometimes understand themselves through their recurring reactions, their dreams, their overwhelming emotions, and the relationships in which they keep getting hurt in the same place. What makes you angrier than the situation seems to justify? What makes you afraid even when other people cannot understand why? What keeps repeating itself in your relationships? These questions can sometimes resemble the faint signals of light emerging from darkness, not to condemn us, but to guide us. What makes tidal disruption events especially valuable to astronomers is that they can reveal black holes that would otherwise be extremely difficult to observe. An isolated black hole emits no visible light and can remain almost invisible, but when a star is torn apart, the resulting flare creates a powerful signal, allowing scientists to study the extreme environment surrounding the black hole. And once again, the story of the universe returns to the human being. Sometimes, we only begin to understand ourselves after a major life event, not because the event was good, but because it forces things that were previously hidden to emerge from the darkness. Someone who loses a career may realize for the first time that their entire sense of self-worth had become attached to their profession. Someone who leaves a relationship may discover that they spent years searching for their value in the eyes of another person. Someone who experiences failure may finally ask, "If I am no longer as successful as I once was, who am I?" These are not easy questions, but sometimes those very questions open the door to genuine growth. The universe does not promise that the star will survive after coming too close to a black hole. In many cases, it is truly destroyed. But from that event, light emerges. Matter is redistributed. Scientists gain new information, and a black hole that was once invisible becomes something that can be studied. It is a profound paradox. Destruction can create knowledge. Life can be like that too. We do not need to romanticize suffering or assume that every loss happens for a reason. Some losses are simply painful. Some wounds do not need to be called lessons immediately, but with time, if we become calm enough to look back, sometimes a clearer image of ourselves can emerge from what has been broken. So tonight, imagine a star drifting through the infinite darkness of space. It does not know that a black hole lies ahead. It simply continues on its path until the gravitational force becomes too strong, and then it begins to change. No longer the same shape, no longer the same structure, yet from the streams of matter swirling around the darkness, light begins to emerge. Perhaps that is something we can carry with us into sleep. Not everything that breaks must be rebuilt exactly as it was before. Sometimes, what matters more is discovering what remains after everything else has been stripped away, what is truly ours. And as the night grows quieter, let the image of the black hole remain far away. It no longer needs to be frightening. It is simply another part of the vast universe, where light and darkness exist together. A star may be torn apart, but its story does not disappear. Its light can continue traveling through space. It can still be seen. It can still tell someone, somewhere far away, that it once existed. And perhaps human beings are like that too. What we have experienced does not have to define our entire identity. But if we have the courage to look into the darkness, listen to what exists within us, and gently learn to understand ourselves, then even from the deepest fractures, something new can begin to shine. Two black holes merging, and the ripples of space-time. Imagine, somewhere in a region of space, billions of light years away, two black holes quietly orbiting one another. There is no sound, no visible light that human eyes could detect, only a gravitational dance unfolding in the deepest darkness of space. With every orbit, they move closer together. With every passing moment, they lose a portion of their energy in the form of gravitational waves, tiny ripples, traveling through the very fabric of space-time. And then, after an unimaginably long journey, the two black holes finally merge, creating one of the most violent events the universe can produce. But perhaps the most extraordinary part is not the immense power of the merger. It is the fact that a disturbance occurring so far away can travel across the universe, crossing billions of light years, and eventually reach tiny instruments here on Earth. Through the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, this image may carry a much deeper meaning. Jung spent much of his work exploring opposites within the human psyche: light and darkness, consciousness and the unconscious, the ego and the shadow we often refuse to acknowledge. In a symbolic sense, black holes can remind us of these hidden regions within ourselves. They do not shine in the ordinary way, yet their presence can be recognized through the effects they have on everything around them. There are things within us that are similar. We cannot see them directly, yet they quietly influence our choices, emotions, fears, and the way we perceive the world. Before two black holes merge, they do not immediately rush into one another. They begin with an orbit, a distance, and a delicate balance. But as they move, the system gradually releases energy through gravitational waves. As energy is lost, the orbit becomes smaller. They rotate faster, move closer together, and eventually enter the final stage of merger. There is something strangely beautiful about this process. The ending does not arrive as a completely unexpected moment. It is prepared by countless small revolutions that came before it. Our inner lives can be similar. Major changes within us do not always begin with a dramatic event. Sometimes they begin with very small movements deep inside a question that suddenly appears in the mind. A feeling of uneasiness we cannot name. An old memory returning, or a quiet realization that the way we are living no longer fits the person we are becoming. Jung called the process of becoming a more complete human being individuation. It is not about becoming perfect. It is about gradually recognizing and integrating the different parts of ourselves. In the universe, the closer two black holes become, the stronger their gravitational waves grow. The space-time around them becomes distorted in an extreme way. And when the merger occurs, part of the system's mass is converted into energy in the form of gravitational waves. This is one of the most remarkable implications of Einstein's theory of general relativity. Space and time are not merely a motionless stage upon which the universe exists. The fabric of space-time itself can ripple. Albert Einstein wrote in The Meaning of Relativity, "Gravitation is the manifestation of the curvature of space-time." End quote. Perhaps a single sentence like that is enough to make us pause for a moment. What we call gravity is not simply an invisible pulling force. It is a manifestation of the way matter and energy curve the structure of the universe. And then those ripples begin their journey. They do not need light to tell their story. They travel through space, passing through matter and crossing enormous regions between galaxies. Billions of years may pass before the signal reaches Earth. During all that time, our civilization may not yet have existed. Generations of human beings may not yet have been born. The cities we know today may never have been built. Yet, the gravitational waves continue traveling. When the signal finally reaches Earth, it is extraordinarily weak. Instruments such as LIGO must measure changes so incredibly small that they seem almost impossible to detect. And yet humanity has learned how to listen for them. For the first time, we are not simply observing the universe through light. We are beginning to listen to the vibrations of space-time itself. Perhaps this is a particularly beautiful image to carry into sleep tonight. In life, we often believe that distant things cannot affect us. An event occurring billions of light years away seems completely unrelated to a person lying quietly in a small room. But the universe tells a different story. Distance does not always mean disconnection. An event that happened in an unimaginably distant past can still leave behind a signal that we only become capable of recognizing today. The human mind can be like that too. Experiences that happened long ago can continue to leave their own waves in the present. A memory we thought had fallen asleep may return in a dream. A sentence spoken many years ago may still quietly influence the way we see ourselves. A fear whose origin we cannot understand may sometimes be the final trace of something that happened long ago. Jung was deeply interested in contents pushed into the unconscious. He believed that something does not disappear simply because it has not entered consciousness. It can continue to exist and express itself through dreams, symbols, emotions, or reactions that we ourselves do not fully understand. So when we learn to listen to ourselves, perhaps we are doing something similar to what scientists do when they listen for gravitational waves. We are searching for very faint signals in order to understand a much larger event that may have taken place somewhere deeper within us. And perhaps that is what makes the story of two merging black holes so gentle when heard before sleep. The universe can be unimaginably violent, yet from a distance of billions of light years, that enormous event becomes nothing more than a tiny ripple. Human beings can also experience devastating moments in life. But with time, what once felt unbearable can sometimes become nothing more than a distant signal in memory. The two black holes eventually merge. An old structure disappears, and a new structure is formed. The ripples continue traveling outward, and somewhere, unimaginably far away and unimaginably long afterward, a small civilization receives that signal and realizes that the universe has just told it a story. Perhaps tonight, as you close your eyes, you do not need to solve everything that is still circling through your mind. Let those thoughts slow down, like distant orbits, gradually settling into stillness. Thoughts come and go. Memories come and go. You do not have to hold on to all of them. Just breathe a little more slowly. Let your body rest. Let your mind release the things that do not need to be solved tonight. Because, just like the universe, the human soul has its own darkness, movements, and cycles. And sometimes, peace does not come from making everything silent. It comes from learning to listen to the ripples within us without being afraid of them. Neutron-star collision. The factories that create gold. Imagine that long before Earth had taken shape, before the first oceans appeared, and even before the Sun and our planetary system were born, a violent encounter took place somewhere far away in the universe. Two small but incredibly dense objects met. They were neutron stars. They orbited one another in the darkness, each revolution bringing them closer together, until gravity pulled them into an unavoidable collision. In that extraordinary moment, matter was compressed under extreme conditions. A tremendous amount of neutron-rich material was released, and within that magnificent natural laboratory, some of the universe's heaviest elements could be formed. Among those atoms may have been gold, platinum, and other rare elements that human beings now treasure here on Earth. But when we look at this cosmic collision through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, the meeting of two neutron stars can suggest something much deeper about the human experience. In Jungian psychology, growth does not always emerge from periods of peace. Sometimes, the greatest transformation comes through confrontation, crisis, and the seemingly chaotic forces within us. There are periods in life when everything appears to be falling apart, and yet, after we pass through them, we may discover that we have become someone different, more thoughtful, more self-aware, and more capable of appreciating life. The two neutron stars were once the remnants of stars that lived brilliant lives. They may once have been massive stars, shining for millions of years before ending their lives in spectacular supernova explosions. After those deaths, their remaining cores were compressed so intensely that enormous amounts of matter became concentrated within objects only a few dozen kilometers across. Two such remnants can exist in a binary system, quietly orbiting one another for an extraordinarily long time, but they are never completely still. They emit energy in the form of gravitational waves, and as a result, their orbit gradually shrinks. Each orbit brings them slightly closer, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but irreversibly, until one day, these two extraordinarily dense worlds collide. The merger creates an environment so rich in neutrons that atomic nuclei can rapidly capture neutrons through a process physicists call the R process, or rapid neutron capture process. Under these extreme conditions, heavy elements can be created. Gold and platinum are often mentioned as particularly fascinating examples because they transform something familiar in everyday life into a remnant of an ancient cosmic history. There is something profoundly beautiful about this idea. Gold did not begin on Earth. The ring on your finger, the jewelry resting inside a small box, or a precious piece of metal that humanity considers valuable may contain a story older than our planet itself. Those atoms may have been created in a cosmic event that occurred before the sun was born. They wandered through space, became mixed into clouds of gas and dust, and eventually became part of the world in which we now live. Carl Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps this sentence can also serve as a strange bridge between the psychology of human beings and the story of stars. Because neutron stars do not become neutron stars by preserving their old form. They must pass through a violent process of transformation. A massive star must die before its core can become something completely different. And through that transformation, new conditions emerge. Conditions that allow the universe to create elements that could not have existed in the same way before. Human beings can be like that too. There are periods when we are forced to leave behind a career, a relationship, a belief, or an image of ourselves. At the time, change may feel like pure loss. We see only what is disappearing. We cannot yet see what is being created. Jung called the journey inward individuation, the process through which a person gradually becomes more aware of the different aspects of their own psyche, including both light and darkness, the desire to be recognized, and the parts that have long remained hidden. It is not about eliminating the darkness. It is about understanding it and bringing it into a larger, more integrated whole. And this is what makes the collision of two neutron stars such a beautiful symbol of transformation. They do not survive the merger in their original form, but from that event, new matter is created and expelled into space. Some of that material can continue traveling through the universe, mixing with the interstellar medium, and eventually becoming part of future generations of stars and planets. Imagine a moment taking place in the deepest reaches of the universe, billions of light years away from Earth. In that seemingly endless darkness, a source of light suddenly erupts with tremendous intensity. It does not last for hours, days, or years. Sometimes, in just a few seconds, a gamma-ray burst, or GRB, can release an enormous amount of energy and produce high-energy radiation that travels across space. Then, just as quickly, everything begins to fade, leaving behind a signal that astronomers can study long after the event itself has ended. What is astonishing is that such a brief event can be visible from an immense distance. It is almost like a fleeting echo of the universe, ringing out from the distant past and eventually reaching us after a journey far longer than any human lifetime. If we look at this phenomenon through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, A gamma-ray burst can become a powerful symbol of the intensity of transformative moments. In psychological life, not every important change happens gradually. There are moments that last only a few seconds, yet can permanently change the way a person sees themselves. A meeting, a loss, a single sentence, a dream, or the sudden realization of a truth. Any of these can be like a flash of light cutting through the darkness. Before that moment, we live one way. After it, even if the outside world has barely changed, the world within us may never be quite the same again. Gamma-ray bursts are extraordinary because they belong to a class of the most powerful radiation events ever observed in the universe. Some GRBs last only a few seconds, while others can continue for much longer. But their significance is not simply a matter of duration. Their enormous energy is released under extreme conditions, often associated with events such as the collapse of massive stars or the merger of compact objects. During these events, matter and energy can form relativistic jets, streams of particles and radiation moving at speeds extremely close to the speed of light. And this is where the story becomes particularly remarkable. A source of radiation may be billions of light years away, yet if one of these jets happens to point roughly toward Earth, the signal we receive can be extraordinarily bright and powerful. It is almost as if a cosmic lamp is switched on for an incredibly brief moment, yet its light is powerful enough to cross distances that the human mind can barely comprehend. There is a beautiful paradox here. Something that is brief is not necessarily something that is small. We often judge the importance of something by how long it lasts. A long life seems more significant than a fleeting moment. A relationship that lasts for years may appear more meaningful than an encounter that lasts only a few minutes. But human psychology tells a different story. Some moments last only seconds, yet leave their imprint on the mind for decades. Jung once wrote, in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." These words offer a perspective that fits remarkably well with our journey through the universe's most extreme events. Because becoming who we truly are is not always a gentle process. Sometimes, we only discover who we really are after something in our old world has collapsed. In Jungian psychology, individuation is the process through which a person gradually becomes more whole by recognizing the different parts of themselves. Not only the qualities we are proud of, but also the things we have tried to hide. Jung called the parts pushed outside conscious awareness the shadow. The shadow does not necessarily represent something evil. It may contain emotions, desires, abilities, or fears that the conscious ego has not yet been ready to acknowledge. A gamma-ray burst also reminds us that something hidden does not necessarily mean something non-existent. A star may be unimaginably far away, beyond the reach of our ordinary vision. But when an extreme event occurs, it can produce a signal powerful enough for us to recognize its presence. Human beings can be like this as well. There are parts of the mind that lie far beneath the surface of everyday life. They may remain silent for years, until, at a certain moment, an event brings them to the surface. A sudden fear appears. A recurring dream returns. An overwhelming emotion emerges without explanation. A reaction far stronger than the situation seems to justify is triggered by a seemingly ordinary sentence. These experiences can sometimes resemble small flashes of light coming from a very deep place within the psyche. They may be signals that something inside us is asking to be seen. And just like a GRB, that signal does not necessarily have to be seen as an enemy. It can be a message. What is even more astonishing is that the light from a GRB does not simply tell the story of the moment when it was emitted, because light takes time to travel. When we observe a very distant GRB, we are actually looking into the past. The event may have happened billions of years ago, yet its signal is only reaching us today. This allows us to think about memory in a different way. Some things happened a very long time ago, yet their influence only becomes clear many years later. A childhood experience, a rejection, something a parent once said, A failure, or a moment that seemed insignificant at the time, can quietly remain within the unconscious. Then, years later, under completely different circumstances, it suddenly lights up again. We think we are reacting to the present, but perhaps, somewhere within the mind, a part of us is reacting to the past. Jung was deeply interested in connections like these. He did not see dreams and symbols simply as meaningless images. To him, they could become pathways through which a person approaches the deeper contents of the psyche. Perhaps this is why a GRB is more than just an astonishing physical phenomenon. It can also become a beautiful symbol of the power of a moment of awakening. A person may live for years within a familiar way of seeing the world. Then, one day, something happens. A truth is recognized. An old belief no longer feels right. A door inside suddenly opens. The moment itself may be very brief, but its influence can last for the rest of a person's life. And just as relativistic jets race through space at speeds close to that of light, psychological transformation can sometimes have a very clear direction as well. When a person finally looks directly at a part of themselves they have been avoiding, the energy once spent running from it can be transformed into understanding. This does not mean that all suffering is necessary, or that every event carries some predetermined meaning, but it reminds us that the human mind has the ability to transform experience into meaning. Something that once caused us pain can become a source of understanding. A failure can become growth. A period of feeling lost can lead us toward a more authentic way of living. The universe does something similar. A dying star can create new elements. A merger can produce gravitational waves. A violent cosmic event can leave behind traces that allow scientists to understand more about the universe. And sometimes, a difficult moment in human life can leave behind something equally precious, a deeper understanding of ourselves. Now, as the night slowly grows quieter, try to imagine a GRB somewhere far away. A beam of light has just erupted in the darkness. It does not know that billions of years from now, a tiny creature on a distant planet will see its traces. It simply happens, and then the light begins its journey, without hurry, without turning back, simply moving silently through space. Perhaps our minds need a moment of stillness like that as well. The thoughts you have today do not need to be resolved tonight. The questions that have no answers can wait until tomorrow. The things that are worrying you can be gently set down beside you for a while. Breathe in slowly, and breathe out gently. You do not need to understand yourself completely in a single night. You only need to allow yourself to rest, because sometimes, even the smallest ray of light is enough to prove that behind the darkness, a story is still unfolding. And as you close your eyes, let that story continue somewhere far away, where stars are still being born and dying, where beams of light are still traveling across billions of years, and where the vast universe continues to move quietly, while you are allowed to lie still, breathe slowly, and gradually drift into sleep. Pulsar, the universe's most precise natural clocks. Somewhere far away in the universe, there is an object so small that beside an ordinary star, it would appear almost like a single point. And yet, that tiny object can contain more mass than the Sun within a region only a few dozen kilometers across. It spins at an astonishing speed, sending beams of radiation from its magnetic poles. Whenever one of those beams sweeps across the direction of Earth, telescopes receive a remarkably regular signal. One pulse, then another, and another. This is a pulsar, one of the most extraordinary natural clocks the universe has ever created. What makes a pulsar so remarkable is not simply its incredible rotation speed or its immense density, but its regularity. In a vast universe that is constantly changing, where stars are born and eventually die, galaxies collide, and black holes merge, a pulsar can emit pulses with such extraordinary regularity that humans can use them as astronomical clocks. Some pulsars rotate hundreds of times per second. Each rotation becomes a rhythm maintained in the freezing darkness of space, almost like an incredibly distant heart patiently beating against the silence. If we look at this phenomenon through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, the image of a pulsar can raise a question that feels deeply connected to our inner lives. What keeps us stable when the world around us is constantly changing? Jung devoted much of his work to the deeper structures of the human psyche, where unconscious contents, memories, symbols, and different aspects of personality coexist. In modern life, we are constantly surrounded by stimulation: work, money, relationships, news, other people's expectations, and questions about the future. We may wake up with a long list of things we need to accomplish and go to bed with a mind that is still spinning. Yet somewhere within us, there is still a deeper rhythm, a breath, a heartbeat, a cycle of waking and sleeping, a part of us that continues to exist beneath the roles we play every day. The pulsar reminds us of this in a remarkably beautiful way. It does not need to chase the universe. It simply rotates. And it is that consistency that gives it meaning. A pulsar often forms after the death of a massive star. When the star undergoes a supernova, its remaining core can collapse into a neutron star. If that neutron star rotates rapidly and emits radiation in a suitable direction, we can observe its regular pulses and call it a pulsar. There is something deeply paradoxical about this. A pulsar is born from a violent and catastrophic event, yet what we receive from it is rhythm. A star dies, a new object is formed, and from that chaos, a clock emerges. In Jungian psychology, this becomes a powerful image of transformation. There are periods in human life that resemble an inner supernova. An old belief collapses, a relationship ends, a job disappears, an identity we once relied upon no longer fits. In those moments, everything can feel like chaos. But the end of an old structure does not necessarily mean the end of the person. Sometimes, it creates the possibility for a new structure to emerge. Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps becoming who you truly are does not mean discovering some perfect version of yourself. Maybe it is something simpler, learning to recognize your own inner rhythm instead of constantly living according to the rhythm imposed by the outside world. A pulsar does not try to become another kind of star. It does not try to hide what it is. It simply rotates according to its own rhythm, and in doing so, it becomes a tool through which humanity can understand the universe. Scientists can use pulsars to study some of the deepest questions in physics. Their regular signals help test theories of gravity, investigate the interstellar environment, and observe unusual stellar systems. Some pulsars exist in binary systems with a companion star. As the two objects orbit one another, tiny changes in the arrival times of the pulsar's signals can reveal information about their orbit and gravitational field. Observations like these have provided important tests of general relativity. The remarkable thing is that we do not need to touch a pulsar, we only need to listen to it. And sometimes, that is exactly what we need to do with ourselves. We do not always need to immediately fix every emotion. Not every sadness needs to be pushed away. Not every negative thought has to disappear at once. Sometimes, we simply need to listen first. Jung placed particular importance on confronting the contents of the unconscious. Dreams, symbols, and recurring emotions can become signals that help us recognize things our conscious mind has not yet seen. Just as an astronomer cannot directly see everything in the universe, but can infer its existence from signals, we can also learn to recognize the deeper parts of ourselves through the small pulses of everyday life. An unusually strong reaction, a fear whose origin we cannot explain, a recurring dream, a feeling of uneasiness even though everything around us seems perfectly fine. These signals are not necessarily enemies. Perhaps they are simply saying, "Look here," and the more we listen, the greater our opportunity to understand ourselves. Pulsars can also help humanity search for incredibly weak gravitational waves. By observing tiny changes in the arrival times of signals from multiple pulsars, scientists can search for fluctuations in space-time produced by enormous gravitational sources. This is extraordinary. An object, thousands or tens of thousands of light-years away, can become part of a network that allows humanity to sense incredibly subtle movements within the universe. A small rhythm can help us hear something enormous, and the same can be true of the soul. Sometimes, a very small emotion can lead us toward a very large realization. You may have experienced a moment like this before. A quiet evening, a passing remark, a dream, a moment of silence between two conversations, and suddenly, you realize that you have been living for too long according to someone else's expectations. Or you realize that something that once caused you pain no longer has the same power over you. Or perhaps you simply realize that you are tired and need to rest. These realizations are not loud. They are more like a small pulse in the darkness. But if we are quiet enough to hear them, they can change the way we see our entire lives. So tonight, try thinking of a pulsar as a clock far away in space. It does not hurry. It does not need to prove anything. It simply keeps its rhythm in the endless darkness. And you can do the same. You do not need to solve your entire life in one night. You do not need to know what tomorrow will bring. You only need to return to the rhythm of your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. One beat, and then another. Let your thoughts come and go like signals passing through the night sky. If something is worrying you, set it down for now. If there is a question without an answer, let it rest. If you did the best you could today, then tonight, you have permission to be still. Out there, pulsars continue to spin, stars continue to be born, galaxies continue to move. The universe continues its long story without needing us to control every moment. And perhaps, in all that vastness, what you need most right now is not an answer, only a very slow breath, a gentle darkness, and permission to let yourself rest. Let the little clock among the stars continue to turn, and you gently close your eyes and allow your mind to return to the peaceful rhythm that has always been within you. Neutrino, the signal that escapes before a star explodes. Imagine a massive star drifting silently through the darkness of space, from tens of thousands of light-years away. It appears to be nothing more than a distant point of light, calm and motionless. But deep within its core, a violent transformation may already be beginning. The stellar core collapses under the weight of its own gravity. Matter is compressed into extreme states, and in that moment, a stream of nearly invisible particles is released. Neutrinos. What is remarkable is that these tiny particles can escape from the star's core before the light from the explosion has a chance to emerge. They are like silent messengers, traveling ahead of the universe's enormous alarm bell. If we look at this phenomenon through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, we can see within it a beautiful image of the human mind. Jung was deeply interested in what happens beneath the surface of consciousness, where quiet movements can begin long before they become clear experiences within conscious awareness. He wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Perhaps this idea offers us a special way of thinking about neutrinos. Sometimes, what matters is not the thing we see first, but the quiet signal that appears before the event itself becomes visible. When a massive star reaches the final stages of its life, it does not simply go dark. Deep inside, a struggle unfolds between gravity and the forces of pressure that maintain the star's structure. When the core can no longer maintain its balance, it collapses incredibly quickly. During this process, an enormous amount of energy is released in the form of neutrinos. Billions upon billions of these particles can pass through the star's dense matter and rush into space with almost no obstruction. They do not create a spectacular display. There is no enormous flame for the human eye to see. They simply pass through in silence. And it is precisely this silence that makes them so valuable. Light is absorbed, scattered, and trapped within the deeper layers of the star. It needs time to find a path outward. Neutrinos are different. Because they interact with matter so weakly, they can pass through the star almost as though those dense walls were not there at all. So when the core begins to collapse, neutrinos can carry information about the event outward before the light from the explosion becomes visible. This creates a beautiful paradox. Something almost invisible can become the earliest sign of one of the brightest events in the universe. Now, try bringing that image back to ourselves. In everyday life, we often wait for obvious signs, a statement, an action, a clearly recognizable event. But within a human being, important changes often begin long before we recognize them. A feeling that is difficult to name, a recurring dream, a small sense of unease, a thought that keeps returning during quiet moments. These signals can be like the neutrinos of the soul, quiet, difficult to see, yet sometimes indicating that a profound transformation is already underway. In this way, the story of neutrinos is not only a story about astrophysics, it is also an invitation to learn how to listen to very small things. One of the most famous pieces of evidence came from supernova 1987A, a stellar explosion observed in 1987 inches, the Large Magellanic Cloud. Neutrino detectors on Earth recorded a burst of neutrinos associated with the star's core collapse before the light from the supernova was observed. That moment became an important milestone in astrophysics. Humanity was no longer observing the universe only through light. We were beginning to listen to other messages carried to us from extreme cosmic events. And perhaps what makes this story especially beautiful is the immense distance between where the event occurred and where humanity received its signal. Those tiny particles crossed an enormous stretch of space before reaching Earth. They carried information from an event that had begun long before we even knew we were waiting for it. Jung once viewed human beings as creatures continually confronting the unknown within themselves. In the Red Book, he wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Although the quote has no direct connection to physics, it allows us to experience the story of neutrinos on another level. The sky above us can reveal enormous cosmic explosions. But when we listen to that story in the stillness of night, we can also turn our attention inward. Some things in the universe must be discovered through signals that are almost invisible, and some things within the mind are the same. When you lie down tonight, perhaps you do not need to try to solve every thought moving through your mind. Simply allow them to drift gently past. Perhaps somewhere within that silence, a small thought is trying to tell you something. You do not need to understand it immediately. You do not need to give it a name. Simply recognize that beneath the silence, there are still movements taking place. Just like a star before it explodes, the human mind also contains deep regions that cannot be seen with the naked eye. And sometimes, the quietest thing is the thing that arrives first. Neutrinos do not need to shine to tell the story of a star. They only need to exist, move through the darkness, and carry the trace of a distant event. Perhaps we do not always need to make a great deal of noise to prove that we are changing either. A new understanding, an emotion finally acknowledged, a fear finally given its true name. These may already be the first signals of a profound transformation. And tonight, as the sounds around you gradually grow quieter, let the story of neutrinos become a gentle image before you drift into sleep. In a universe so vast that it is almost impossible to imagine, tiny signals are still quietly crossing the darkness, finding their way toward us. And within you, there may also be signals like these things that do not need answers yet, only to be heard. Because sometimes, awakening does not begin with a loud sound. It begins with the faintest signal. That moment creates a kilonova. The name may make us think of a smaller version of a supernova, but what matters more is the mechanism behind it. When two neutron stars merge, some of their extremely neutron-rich matter can be ejected into space. In this environment, atomic nuclei can rapidly capture neutrons through a process known as the R process, or rapid neutron capture process. The newly formed nuclei then undergo radioactive decay and other transformations, gradually moving toward heavier elements. And this is where the story becomes strangely intimate, because elements such as gold and platinum, things that on Earth often evoke images of value, beauty, and permanence, may have originated in violent collisions between dead stars. The atoms inside a small ring on a human finger may carry a cosmic history far deeper than the history of our civilization. We often think that the value of an object lies in its present form, but the universe tells a different story. A gold atom does not need to be born in a peaceful world. It may be created in an extreme event, expelled into space, drift through clouds of gas, mix with interstellar matter, and eventually become part of a new star, a new planet, and, much later, part of us. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This idea opens an interesting way of reflecting on the kilonova. Matter does not simply disappear after a collision. It is transformed. Old components enter new structures. An event that appears purely destructive becomes one link in the larger process through which the universe creates matter. The light from a kilonova tells a special story as well. After the merger, the ejected material contains unstable radioactive isotopes. As they decay, energy is released and heats the surrounding material. This process contributes to the kilonova's light, but that light does not remain unchanged. It evolves over time. At first, a kilonova can appear brighter and relatively bluer, while the ejected material is still hot and less dominated by heavy elements. Later, as the material cools and heavier elements form, the light tends to shift toward longer, redder wavelengths and gradually fade. So when astronomers observe a kilonova, they are not simply looking at a point of light. They are watching a process unfold. The color changes, the brightness changes, the spectrum changes. All of these transformations are like a diary written in light, and by following those changes, scientists can learn about the origins of heavy elements. One of the most important events was GW 170817 in 2017, when gravitational wave observatories detected the signal from a neutron star merger, followed by observations of the event's light from telescopes on Earth and in space. It was a remarkable milestone because, for the first time, scientists had the opportunity to study a neutron star merger through multiple channels of information from gravitational waves to light. It was as though the universe had sent us not just a photograph, but the sound, colors, and movement of an entire story. From a Jungian perspective, perhaps the most fascinating part is not gold or platinum themselves. It is the idea of transformation. In depth psychology, human beings often have to confront uncomfortable parts of themselves, their memories, fears, or inner conflicts that they would rather eliminate. But what we reject does not necessarily disappear. It may continue to exist in another form and influence our inner lives. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Perhaps this reminds us that growth does not necessarily mean denying the darkness, but looking directly at it and understanding what it is trying to say. The kilonova offers a similar image on a cosmic scale. Neutron stars do not simply return to being the stars they once were, but their matter is released, transformed, and continues its journey. What appears to be the end of one story becomes the raw material for other stories. Think about that as you lie quietly in the darkness tonight. Perhaps our lives also contain periods that resemble an orbit drawing inward. Silent pressures accumulate. Unresolved things move closer together, and sometimes, an event occurs that makes everything seem to fall apart. But falling apart does not always mean complete destruction. Afterward, the remaining pieces of us may be arranged in an entirely new way. Someone who has experienced loss may become more deeply aware of life. Someone who has failed may understand more clearly what they truly need. Someone who has faced fear may discover a strength they never knew they possessed. Not every pain creates gold, and we should never romanticize suffering. But the story of the kilonova reminds us that transformation rarely happens in a state of perfect peace. Sometimes, it is the collision that forces an old structure to change and opens the possibility for another structure to emerge. And then, millions or billions of years later, that matter may appear somewhere completely different. An atom created in the collision of two neutron stars may travel through space, become part of a cloud of matter, and eventually contribute to a new star. Some of that material may become part of a planet, and on a small planet, long afterward, a conscious creature may look up at the sky and wonder where it came from. Perhaps that is the greatest wonder of all. We do not stand outside the story of the universe. We are part of it. The elements in our bodies have traveled through journeys almost impossible for the human mind to imagine. And when we lie down to sleep tonight, the stillness around us may make us forget that beneath this peaceful surface, the history of the universe is still present in every atom. A kilonova is only a brief moment within the immense timeline of the universe. Yet from that moment, matter can continue to exist across generations of stars and galaxies. So if today you feel that you are standing at the end of a chapter, remember the two neutron stars moving through the darkness. They reached a violent ending, but the story of their matter did not end there. Some endings are only transitions. Some losses leave behind new ingredients. And some things that seem to have disappeared continue their journey in another form. Like the light of a kilonova, it may eventually fade away, but the elements it created remain, quietly moving into the future. FRB, mysterious radio flashes from deep space. Imagine a completely quiet night. No sound, no unusual light in the sky. Only the small planet Earth, slowly turning through the vastness of space. Then, from somewhere incredibly distant, a radio signal suddenly appears. It lasts for only a tiny fraction of a second, so brief that without sensitive instruments, humanity might never have known it existed. Yet in that fleeting moment, a remarkable amount of energy has traveled across intergalactic space to reach us. This is a fast radio burst, or FRB, one of the mysterious and captivating flashes of radio energy from the depths of the universe. They are like faint knocks upon the door of consciousness, appearing and disappearing before we have time to understand who knocked, where they came from, or why. Viewed through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, an FRB can become a beautiful symbol of signals emerging from hidden depths. Some things appear in the mind for only a brief moment, but if we know how to listen, they can open an entire world we had never noticed before. FRBs were first discovered in 2007, when astronomers analyzing archived radio data from a telescope recognized an unusual signal. What made it remarkable was that the signal did not resemble an ordinary radio source. It was extremely brief, yet extraordinarily bright in radio wavelengths. Since then, thousands of FRBs have been detected, opening an entirely new field of research in astronomy. Some signals appear to occur only once, others repeat, sometimes following remarkably complex patterns. And it is precisely these differences that make FRBs so fascinating. A single signal makes us ask, what happened there? A repeating signal raises another question. Why does it keep happening? We can imagine these FRBs as whispers, traveling across a vast cosmic ocean. Each flash lasts only a moment, yet it may have traveled millions or even billions of light years before reaching Earth. During the time that signal was traveling, civilizations may have appeared and disappeared. Stars may have been born and died. Galaxies may have changed their shapes. But the signal continued on its journey. And then, one night, it reached Earth. There is something deeply connected to human psychology in this image. Jung was particularly interested in signals from the unconscious dreams, images, emotions, or intuitions that may appear very briefly, but carry profound meaning. He once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." An FRB can be understood symbolically in much the same way. It may appear in a vast stream of data as a tiny anomaly, but if we ignore it, we may never discover the story it is trying to tell. What is especially fascinating is that some FRBs have been associated with magnetars, neutron stars, possessing extraordinarily powerful magnetic fields. When the structure of a magnetar changes or violent activity occurs on its surface or within its magnetosphere, it can produce powerful bursts of radiation. In 2020, astronomers detected an FRB from a magnetar within the Milky Way, providing important evidence that at least some FRBs can be produced by these extreme objects. A tiny, incredibly dense object hidden within the darkness of space can produce a signal powerful enough to be detected by instruments on Earth. This forces us to reconsider what we mean by large and small. In the universe, physical size does not always determine the scale of an object's influence. An object only a few dozen kilometers across can produce phenomena detectable from an enormous distance. A person can sometimes be like that too. A very small thought can change an entire life. A passing sentence can remain in the mind for years. A dream that lasts only a few minutes can make us question who we are for months. Not everything that has a profound impact begins with a loud sound. FRBs are also remarkable in another way. As a radio signal travels through the space between galaxies, it does not move through a completely empty environment. Along its long journey, the signal interacts with thin plasma containing free electrons. Different components of the radio wave are affected differently, producing a phenomenon known as dispersion, in which lower frequencies arrive later than higher frequencies. By measuring this dispersion, astronomers can estimate how many electrons the signal has passed through. This means that an FRB can become a tool for weighing the matter between galaxies. A signal does not only tell us about where it was born, it also tells us about what it encountered along the way. This is a beautiful idea when viewed through a Jungian perspective. We cannot understand ourselves simply by looking at a single moment in the present. Every thought and every emotion passes through an inner history. Memories, experiences, relationships, beliefs, and even parts of ourselves that have not yet entered conscious awareness. A reaction that seems small today may carry the traces of a story that began long ago. FRBs help scientists read the invisible space between galaxies. And looking inward can help human beings recognize the invisible spaces within themselves. Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." When we look up at the sky, we discover the mysteries of the universe. But when we turn our gaze inward, we may begin to recognize the mysteries within ourselves. Perhaps that is also why FRBs fascinate us so deeply. They do not give us a complete answer. They simply send us a signal, a flash, a trace, a question, and the rest belongs to us. Imagine an FRB emitted billions of light years away. When that signal began its journey, Earth may not yet have existed in the form we know today. Some of the stars we see now may not even have been formed. Yet, after a journey so long that it exceeds human intuition, the signal eventually reaches a telescope on Earth. A distant moment becomes information in the present. Perhaps our lives contain signals like that, too. An old memory suddenly returning, a dream that leaves us wondering, a feeling we cannot quite name appearing when the room has become completely silent. They can be like the FRBs of the mind brief, difficult to grasp, but sometimes worth listening to. Not every signal needs to be explained immediately. Some simply need to be acknowledged. Some need time, and some may return again and again until we become calm enough to understand what they are trying to say. As night falls, perhaps you do not need to search for some grand answer either. Simply lie still, breathe a little more slowly, and allow your thoughts to drift by. If an image, a memory, or an unexpected emotion appears, let it exist for a moment, without rushing to judge it. Out there, radio signals are still traveling across the universe. Stars are still being born and dying. Galaxies are still drifting through the darkness. And somewhere, another FRB may have just occurred, a flash invisible to our eyes in the radio spectrum, a brief message from somewhere incredibly far away. Perhaps we will catch it, perhaps we will not. But simply knowing that these flashes exist is enough to make the universe feel deeper. And in the stillness of tonight, let this story remind you of something gentle. Not every mystery needs to be solved immediately. Some things simply need to be heard. A signal may last for only a fraction of a millisecond, yet carry a story billions of years old. And sometimes, a very small moment within the mind can open a door into a world far deeper than we ever imagined. Relativistic jets and extreme cosmic explosions. There are places in the universe where, from a great distance, we might think we are witnessing a giant lamp shining in the endless darkness. But in reality, what we are seeing may be a stream of matter launched from the region surrounding a black hole, traveling at speeds approaching that of light. These streams are known as relativistic jets, among the most powerful and extraordinary phenomena ever observed in astronomy. They can emerge around black holes that are actively accreting matter, particularly in active galactic nuclei, where material is being pulled inward violently, and enormous amounts of energy are released. What is astonishing is that we do not need to stand anywhere near these objects to sense their power. A jet can carry energy across intergalactic space, extending from thousands to millions of light years, like a gigantic streak of light painted across the dark canvas of the universe. And if we look at this phenomenon through the eyes of Carl Jung, we may see more than a physical process. We may also see a profound symbol of compressed energy, of power seeking an outlet, and of how a seemingly contained source of energy can create an influence far beyond the boundaries we imagine. Try to imagine a black hole. We often associate it with silence, darkness, and disappearance. Yet paradoxically, the regions surrounding black holes can become some of the brightest places in the universe. Matter falling inward does not simply disappear immediately. Before crossing the event horizon, it can become trapped in a hot accretion disk, reaching temperatures high enough to produce enormous amounts of radiation. Under certain conditions, some of the energy within the system can be converted into streams of plasma launched along the system's axis of rotation. These jets carry highly energetic charged particles and travel at tremendous speeds. They are not beams of light in the ordinary sense. Rather, they are streams of matter and electromagnetic fields organized into an extraordinarily powerful structure. Sometimes they extend far beyond their host galaxy, reaching into the vast space between galaxies. A relatively compact object at the center of a galaxy can leave an imprint across an enormous distance. It is precisely this paradox that makes the phenomenon so beautiful when viewed through the lens of depth psychology. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, he used this chemical image to describe encounters between human beings. But if we gently carry that image into the universe, we can sense something similar. When extreme sources of energy interact, they do not necessarily remain in their original states. Matter, magnetic fields, motion, and gravity interact within a complex system and can produce something entirely new. And the same thing can happen within the human psyche. There may be emotions we believe are insignificant, a forgotten memory, an unnamed fear, a buried desire. But when these inner forces encounter a powerful event in our lives, they can produce a kind of psychological jet, a sudden stream of energy released outward, changing the way we live, love, choose, and understand ourselves. There are encounters in the universe that unfold so slowly that if a human being were there to watch them, they would not notice any change at all. There would be no instant explosion, no sudden moment of impact, no dramatic flash announcing that something extraordinary had begun. Instead, two enormous galaxies would gradually drift toward one another, guided by gravity across immense stretches of space and time. And at the heart of each galaxy, there may be something even more extraordinary waiting to meet its counterpart, a supermassive black hole. These black holes can contain millions or even billions of times the mass of our Sunday. They are among the most extreme objects known to exist, yet they can remain hidden at the centers of galaxies for billions of years. When two galaxies merge, their central black holes may eventually form a gravitationally bound pair. At first, they may be separated by an enormous distance, but as the surrounding stars and gas interact with the system, the black holes gradually lose orbital energy and move closer together. Their journey can take an extraordinarily long time, and then, eventually, something remarkable happens. The two black holes begin orbiting each other at increasingly smaller distances, circling faster and faster as gravity draws them together. They are no longer simply two isolated objects. They have become one of the most powerful gravitational systems in the universe. As they spiral inward, they can release gravitational waves, tiny ripples propagating through space-time itself. These waves carry energy away from the system, causing the orbit to shrink even further. The closer they get, the faster they orbit. The faster they orbit, the stronger the gravitational waves become. And eventually, the two black holes merge. For a brief moment, an enormous amount of energy can be carried away through gravitational radiation, creating a disturbance that travels across the universe. What makes this extraordinary is that the event does not need to produce ordinary light to be detected. We can, in a sense, feel the movement of space-time itself. This gives us another beautiful connection to the ideas of Carl Gustav Jung. Jung was deeply interested in processes that unfold beneath conscious awareness. Much of psychological transformation does not happen suddenly. It develops quietly beneath the surface, through experiences, memories, emotions, conflicts, and unconscious patterns. From the outside, a person may appear unchanged, but inside, something may already be moving. A belief that once seemed unquestionable begins to weaken. A relationship that once felt essential begins to lose its hold. A fear that has remained hidden for years slowly becomes visible. A question begins to return again and again. At first, these changes may seem almost insignificant, but like two massive black holes slowly spiraling toward one another, small movements repeated over time can eventually lead to an irreversible transformation. Jung called the deeper process of becoming more fully oneself individuation. It is not simply about becoming a different person. It is about bringing the different parts of ourselves into greater awareness and allowing them to form a more complete whole. Sometimes this process feels peaceful, but sometimes it feels like a collision. The identity we built around our career may collapse. The image we created for other people may no longer feel authentic. A relationship may end. A belief inherited from childhood may suddenly no longer make sense. And when those structures begin to fall apart, we may believe that something has gone terribly wrong. But perhaps not everything that breaks is a disaster. Sometimes, the old structure has simply reached the end of its usefulness. The universe offers us a powerful image of this. When two galaxies merge, their original shapes can be dramatically transformed. Their spiral arms may become distorted. Stars can be scattered into new orbits. Gas clouds can be compressed. New stars may form. The galaxies do not simply disappear. They become something different. And perhaps human beings can sometimes experience transformation in the same way. We may lose the shape we once recognized as ourselves, but that does not necessarily mean we have lost ourselves completely. Perhaps we are becoming something larger. There is another fascinating possibility. After two supermassive black holes merge, the resulting black hole may receive a gravitational recoil, sometimes called a black hole kick. If the gravitational waves are emitted asymmetrically, the newly formed black hole can receive a tremendous impulse and move through its galaxy. Imagine that. A black hole with billions of solar masses can be pushed through an entire galaxy by the asymmetry of space-time itself. It reminds us that even the most massive structures in existence are not completely still. Everything moves. Everything changes. Everything participates in a larger gravitational dance. And perhaps this is one of the quiet lessons we can carry into the night. You do not have to remain exactly who you were yesterday. You do not have to preserve every belief simply because it once protected you. You do not have to fear every transformation simply because it changes the shape of your life. Some changes arrive gently, others arrive like cosmic collisions. But both can become part of the journey toward a deeper understanding of who you are. So tonight, as you lie quietly in the darkness, imagine two supermassive black holes slowly moving through the vastness of space. They are not rushing. They do not know where their journey leads. They simply follow the laws of the universe, moving closer and closer through time. And perhaps you can do the same. You do not need to understand your entire life tonight. You do not need to solve every conflict. You do not need to know exactly who you will become. For now, simply breathe. Slowly, gently. Let the thoughts that need to move, move. Let the questions that have no answers rest. Somewhere beyond your imagination, galaxies are merging. Black holes are spiraling together. Gravitational waves are traveling across the cosmos. And here, on this small planet, you are allowed to simply be still. Perhaps transformation is already happening inside you, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. And you do not need to force it. You only need to give it time, because sometimes the greatest changes begin long before we can see them. A clear moment when we can say, everything has begun. There are only two galaxies, slowly moving toward one another, their gravitational orbits gradually changing, their stars becoming disturbed, while gas and dust are stretched into long streams across space. And at the center of each galaxy, two supermassive black holes also begin moving closer together. It is a journey that can last millions, even hundreds of millions of years. From the perspective of a human lifetime, that is almost an eternity. But to the universe, it is simply another chapter in the long history of galactic evolution. And perhaps that slow pace is what makes this story especially fitting for a quiet night. It reminds us that not every transformation needs to happen quickly. Some of the most important changes in our lives take place silently within us over many years, even decades, before one day we suddenly realize that we have become a different person. As the two galaxies enter each other's gravitational influence, gravity begins rewriting the structure of both. Stars rarely collide directly because the distances between them are enormous. But the entire system can be stretched, twisted, and rearranged. At the center of each galaxy is often a supermassive black hole, with a mass millions or even billions of times greater than that of the Sun. As the two galaxies gradually merge, their central black holes do not remain still. Through gravitational interactions with their surrounding environment, they can lose orbital energy and slowly move closer together. Eventually, if conditions are right, they can form a binary black hole system, orbiting one another in a gravitational dance that human eyes could never observe directly. There is something beautiful about this image. Two objects that seem completely isolated can be drawn into a profound relationship by the invisible force surrounding them. They do not need to touch immediately. They only need to be close enough to influence each other's movement. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, this image brings to mind the way different parts of the human psyche can exist within us for long periods without becoming fully conscious. Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps the process of becoming ourselves is also a very slow convergence. We do not wake up one morning and suddenly become our true selves. We move toward that person through experiences, failures, conflicts, and questions that do not always have immediate answers. Two supermassive black holes can take an enormous amount of time to reach their final stage. And this is where the story becomes especially fascinating. In the early stages, their movement may be extremely slow, but as the distance between them decreases, the emission of gravitational waves becomes increasingly important. Energy is carried away from the system in the form of ripples in the very structure of space-time. Eventually, the two black holes may merge into a single, more massive black hole. Pause for a moment and let yourself feel how strange this is. Space-time, which we often imagine as a passive stage on which everything happens, is not completely still. It can ripple. It can carry information about mergers occurring across enormous distances. An event that happened in the distant past can create waves that travel across the universe and, after millions or billions of years, eventually reach Earth. An incredibly faint disturbance can carry the story of two massive objects that once orbited one another in the darkness. And this naturally makes us think of memory. In depth psychology, the past does not necessarily disappear simply because we can no longer see it. An experience that has ended can continue to influence the way we respond to the present. A fear from childhood may quietly shape a decision many years later. A seemingly careless sentence may become a belief we carry throughout our lives. Like gravitational waves, these influences can be extremely subtle, yet they still carry information about something that happened long ago. And sometimes, what exhausts us is not the event itself, but the ripple of an event that has already ended. There are people who left our lives long ago but still influence the way we love. There are failures that ended years ago but still live inside our fear of trying again. There are wounds that are no longer happening, yet the mind continues to react as though they are happening right now. Jung was deeply interested in such unconscious processes because he understood that what we cannot see can still exert a powerful influence on conscious life. But just as a black hole cannot be understood simply by looking at its darkness, a human being cannot be understood solely through outward behavior. Perhaps this is why the journey of two black holes toward eventual union carries such powerful symbolic meaning. Each of us contains different parts: reason and emotion, light and darkness, the person we want others to see, and the parts we try to hide, even from ourselves. Jung called the parts pushed outside the identity we consciously maintain the shadow. The shadow is not simply the bad within us. It can contain emotions, needs, abilities, desires, or aspects of our personality that we have not yet learned to accept. If we constantly run away from a part of ourselves, life can become a quiet internal conflict. But if we become calm enough to look at it, recognize it, and understand where it comes from, the parts that once seemed opposed can begin to become integrated. This does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming more whole. In the universe, the merger of two black holes does not create an object identical to either of the original ones. It creates a new state. A new structure emerges after a long process of interaction, energy loss, and transformation. Perhaps human beings are like this too. After years of struggling with ourselves, we do not necessarily return to the person we once were. We become someone different, someone who understands themselves more deeply. And when the two black holes finally merge, an enormous amount of energy is released in the form of gravitational waves. It is as though the universe records that moment through a disturbance spreading across space. Once again, this image allows us to look at life with a little more gentleness. Your struggles do not become meaningless simply because nobody sees them. The quiet changes happening inside you are still real changes. Perhaps other people do not notice that you have become more patient, calmer, or more self-aware. Perhaps no one knows how long it took you to move through a particular pain, but that does not make your journey any less important. The universe does not hurry. Massive black holes can take millions of years to reach their moment of merger. Galaxies can take hundreds of millions of years to restructure themselves. And human beings have the right to need time, too. So if tonight you feel that you have not yet become the person you hope to be, give yourself a little peace. You do not have to complete your entire journey in one night. Some transformations need time. Some questions do not need answers today. Lie down. Relax your body. Let your breathing become slower. Somewhere far away, supermassive black holes are still moving through the darkness. Gravitational waves are still traveling across the universe. And somewhere, an ancient signal may still be making its way toward us. You are on a journey like that, too. There is no need to hurry. You do not need to know exactly what tomorrow will become. Just keep moving forward, slowly, gently, because sometimes the deepest forms of growth make no sound at all. Galaxy cluster collisions and the mystery of dark matter. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that, somewhere so distant that light takes billions of years to reach us, two enormous galaxy clusters are rushing toward one another. There is no explosion that human ears could hear, no ground beneath us shaking, and yet an enormous region of space-time is undergoing a violent cosmic encounter. Thousands of galaxies, vast oceans of superheated gas, and enormous amounts of dark matter are all taking part in a dance that humanity can observe only through the faint traces left behind. It is one of those cosmic scenes that reminds us that the universe is not merely vast. It operates according to laws far beyond our everyday intuition. And when we look at colliding galaxy clusters, perhaps we are also seeing something strangely familiar within our own minds. Sometimes, the most important things are the things we cannot directly see. There are places in the universe where, if we looked from a distance, we might think we were witnessing a gigantic lamp shining in the endless darkness. But in reality, what is glowing could be a stream of matter launched from the region surrounding a black hole, traveling at speeds close to that of light. These streams are known as relativistic jets, some of the most powerful and mysterious phenomena ever observed in astronomy. They can appear around accreting black holes, especially in active galactic nuclei, where matter is being drawn inward violently, and enormous amounts of energy are released. What is astonishing is that we do not need to be anywhere near these objects to witness their power. A jet can carry energy across intergalactic space, stretching from thousands to millions of light-years, like a gigantic streak of light painted across the dark canvas of the universe. And if we look at this phenomenon through the eyes of Carl Gustav Jung, we may see more than a physical process. We may also see a profound symbol of compressed energy, of power searching for a way out, and of how something seemingly small within us can create an influence far beyond the limits we imagine. Try to picture a black hole. We often associate it with silence, darkness, and disappearance. Yet paradoxically, the regions surrounding black holes can become some of the brightest places in the universe. Matter falling inward does not simply disappear immediately. Before crossing the event horizon, it can become trapped in an accretion disk, heated to extraordinary temperatures, producing enormous amounts of radiation. Under certain conditions, some of the system's energy can be transformed into streams of plasma, launched along the system's axis of rotation. These jets carry highly energetic charged particles and move at tremendous speeds. They are not beams of light in the ordinary sense, but streams of matter and electromagnetic fields, organized into extraordinarily powerful structures. Sometimes they extend far beyond their host galaxy, reaching into the vast space between galaxies. An object located at the center, relatively small compared with the galaxy as a whole, can leave an imprint across enormous distances. That paradox is what makes the phenomenon especially beautiful when viewed through the lens of depth psychology. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, he used the image of chemistry to describe the encounter between people. But if we gently carry that image into the universe, we can sense something similar. When extreme sources of energy interact, they do not necessarily remain in their original states. A system of matter, magnetic fields, motion, and gravity can interact to create something entirely new. The same thing can happen within the human soul. There may be emotions we believe are insignificant, a forgotten memory, an unnamed fear, a buried desire, but when they encounter a powerful event in our lives, they can produce a psychological jet, a sudden stream of energy that changes the way we live, love, choose, and understand ourselves. What is even more fascinating is the angle from which we observe them. Not every jet points toward Earth, but when a jet is directed almost straight toward us, it can appear far brighter and more powerful than when viewed from another angle. Celestial objects whose jets point close to Earth are often called blazars. Relativistic effects amplify the radiation from the jet in the direction of observation, making a distant source appear extraordinarily bright to us. This raises a deeply human question. Does what we see always reflect the whole truth? In everyday life, we often see a person through a very narrow angle of observation. Someone who appears cold may actually be protecting a wound. Someone who seems incredibly strong may be hiding a fragile fear. Someone who always tries to control everything may be deeply afraid of losing control. An action can appear significant from our perspective while carrying an entirely different meaning within another person's psychological world. This is one of the reasons Jung's ideas remain so compelling. He did not simply ask, "What is this person doing?" He also wanted to know, what is operating beneath that behavior? And perhaps this is where cosmic jets become such a beautiful image for the psychological shadow. A black hole is often imagined as a symbol of the unconscious, a place containing things we cannot directly see, yet energy can still emerge from the regions surrounding that darkness. In Jungian psychology, the unconscious is not merely a place containing frightening things. It can also be a source of images, intuition, creativity, and transformative potential that consciousness has not yet fully understood. A person may spend years trying to hide a part of themselves, but the more something is repressed, the more psychological energy may seek another way to express itself. Sometimes it appears in dreams, sometimes as sudden anger, sometimes as a career change, an intense love, a creative impulse, or simply the feeling that the life we are living no longer fits the person we truly are inside. But not every form of energy needs to be eliminated. Sometimes what we need is not to fight it, but to learn to understand it. A jet is not bad because it is incredibly powerful. It is simply the result of an extreme physical system releasing energy through a particular structure. In the same way, an intense emotion is not necessarily an enemy. Anger may be telling us that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness may be telling us that something important has been lost. Dissatisfaction may reveal that some part of us longs to live more authentically. When we try only to suppress these emotions, they may continue searching for other ways to emerge. But when we listen to them, that energy can be transformed into awareness. Jets also astonish us because of their enormous scale. A source of energy buried deep within the center of a galaxy can create structures that extend far beyond the galaxy itself. This reminds us that physical size does not always determine the scale of an influence. A small thought can change an entire life. A sentence heard many years ago can quietly shape a person. A memory we thought we had forgotten can suddenly return in a dream. And sometimes, a single moment of genuine self-awareness can open an entirely different path. perhaps that is why, when night falls and we hear about these jets traveling through deep space, we do not need to feel small in a hopeless way. Instead, our smallness can become something gentle. We live on a tiny planet, inside one galaxy among countless others. Yet within each of us exists a psychological world so rich that even we have not fully explored it. The universe outside may be unimaginably vast, but the inner world can be just as deep. And as you prepare to close your eyes tonight, imagine a jet quietly moving through space, carrying energy from some distant region of the universe toward the place where we are standing. You do not need to understand all of its mysteries. Simply allow the image to drift through your mind like a distant stream of light. There are forces in the universe that we still cannot fully understand, and there are also parts of ourselves that we do not need to understand tonight. They can wait until tomorrow. For now, let your mind slow down. Let your breathing become lighter, and allow those enormous streams of energy far beyond us to continue their journey, while you slowly enter the quietness of sleep. When galaxies collide and create new stars, try to imagine a distant night in the far future, when two enormous galaxies slowly move toward each other through an almost perfectly silent expanse of space. There is no metallic crash, no single explosive moment like the collisions we often imagine. Instead, there is a gravitational dance lasting hundreds of millions of years. Spiral arms are stretched outward, clouds of gas and dust are disturbed, and streams of matter extend into space like enormous tails. And while the familiar structures of the two galaxies gradually transform, somewhere within cold clouds of gas being compressed, new stars begin to form. There is a beautiful paradox here. A collision can destroy an old structure while simultaneously planting the seeds of a new one. Viewed through the lens of Carl Gustav Jung, this phenomenon can become an image of our own inner lives. There are periods in life when everything seems to be falling apart, when the structures we once trusted no longer stand, when familiar things are pulled out of their old positions. Yet sometimes, that very disruption releases a source of energy that has been trapped for too long, giving a new version of ourselves the opportunity to emerge. The first astonishing thing to understand is that, during a collision between two galaxies, the stars themselves rarely collide directly. The distances between stars are so enormous that even when two galaxies pass through and interact with each other, the probability of two individual stars physically colliding remains extremely small. What is truly affected is the gas, dust, and entire gravitational structure of the galaxies. Clouds of gas are compressed, orbits change, and matter is driven into regions of higher density. There, gravity can trigger intense periods of star formation. New stars begin to emerge from material that the universe had prepared long before. Perhaps this is one of the most beautiful images to carry with us into sleep. Not every collision is meant to destroy. Some encounters change our structure, but those same encounters can awaken potential that had never before had the opportunity to emerge. Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." We can read these words as a gentle reminder that the journey toward becoming ourselves is not always a smooth road. Sometimes we discover who we are only after the things that once defined us begin to change. In astronomy, an interaction between galaxies can last hundreds of millions of years. That allows us to see time from a different perspective. To a human being, a few months or a few years can feel incredibly long. A period of uncertainty can make us believe that our entire life has gone off course. But on the timescale of the universe, transformation often happens so slowly that it is almost impossible to notice when looking at a single moment. Two galaxies do not instantly become a new system. They approach one another, pull on each other, distort one another, and eventually may merge into an entirely different structure. Human psychology often works in much the same way. Some inner changes do not happen overnight. A sadness may take years to understand. A wound may require a long time before it stops influencing the way we see the world. An old belief may not disappear because of a single argument, but gradually weaken through hundreds of small experiences. Jung called the deep process of human development individuation, the process of becoming a more complete individual, by confronting and integrating different parts of ourselves. In that sense, transformation is not about erasing the person we once were. It is about learning how to place seemingly contradictory parts of ourselves into a larger structure. Look at the tidal tails, those enormous streams created when gravity pulls matter away from interacting galaxies. They can stretch for hundreds of thousands of light years. From a distance, they look like rivers of light flowing through the darkness. But they also tell a story about the past. They are traces of an encounter. They tell us that a powerful interaction once took place there. Human beings carry their own tidal tales. A sentence spoken by a parent. A friendship that ended. A relationship that once meant everything. A failure we thought we had forgotten. A decision made when we were too young to understand its consequences. These things may no longer exist directly in our present lives, yet their traces can remain in the way we think, choose, and react. Sometimes we fail to realize that a powerful reaction in the present is actually a tidal tail, stretching back to an event from the distant past. This is also why Jung was so interested in unconscious material. What is pushed out of consciousness does not necessarily disappear. It can continue to exist through symbols, dreams, emotions, or repeated patterns of behavior. And just as astronomers study tidal tails to understand the history of galactic interactions, we can learn to look at our own reactions to understand the history of our inner world. But the most beautiful part remains the birth of new stars. When gas is compressed enough, gravity pulls matter closer together. Denser regions continue collapsing. Temperatures and pressures rise until a star begins to form. Material from a chaotic past becomes the raw material for new light. A galaxy may pass through a period of tremendous turbulence, yet that very turbulence can encourage new generations of stars to appear. This allows us to look at difficult periods in our own lives with a little more gentleness. Not every loss automatically becomes something good, and suffering should never be romanticized. But sometimes, after a major event, we discover possibilities that never had a chance to emerge before. Someone who once feared being alone may learn to appreciate silence. Someone who spent their life trying to please others may finally begin asking, "What do I actually want?" Someone who once believed failure was the end may discover that it was simply the end of one particular path. Perhaps that is what colliding galaxies can teach us tonight. Transformation does not always look like growth. Sometimes it looks like chaos. Sometimes it looks like being lost. Sometimes it looks like an old structure being stretched so far that we can no longer recognize its original shape. Yet deep within that chaos, clouds of gas are still gathering. Particles are still moving closer together. And somewhere, new stars are preparing to shine. So if tonight you find yourself in a period when life no longer looks the way it once did, you do not need to solve everything immediately. Give yourself time. The universe does not hurry. 2 galaxies can take hundreds of millions of years to become a new structure. And the human soul also has the right to take time to heal and grow. Lie still. Relax your shoulders. Let your breathing slow down. Imagine distant tidal tails drifting through the darkness, clouds of gas quietly collapsing, and new stars being born from the very material of an ancient collision. Perhaps our lives are like that too. Some things are ending. Some things are changing. But that does not mean everything is being lost. Perhaps something new is quietly being born within you. And tonight, you do not need to know what it will become. Just sleep. Let time do its work. Supermassive black holes and colossal mergers, There are encounters in the universe that unfold so slowly that if a human being were standing there watching, they would never notice any visible change. There is no immediate explosion, no clearly defined moment when we could say, everything has begun. There are only two galaxies slowly moving toward one another, their gravitational orbits gradually changing, their stars being disturbed, and their gas and dust being pulled into long streams across space. And at the center of each galaxy, two supermassive black holes also begin moving closer together. The journey may last millions, even hundreds of millions of years. Through human eyes, that is almost an eternity. But to the universe, it is simply another chapter in the long history of galactic evolution. Perhaps that slow movement is precisely what makes this story so fitting for a quiet night. It reminds us that not every transformation needs to happen quickly. Some of the most important changes in our lives happen silently within us over years, even decades, before one day we suddenly realize that we have become someone different. As the two galaxies enter each other's gravitational influence, gravity begins rewriting the structure of both. The stars rarely collide directly because the distances between them are enormous, but the entire system can be stretched, twisted, and rearranged. At the center of each galaxy there is often a supermassive black hole with a mass millions or even billions of times greater than that of the Sun. As the two galaxies gradually merge, their central black holes do not remain still. They can lose energy through gravitational interactions with their surrounding environment and slowly move closer together. Eventually, under the right conditions, they can form a binary black hole system, orbiting one another in a gravitational dance that human eyes cannot directly observe. There is something deeply beautiful about this image. Two objects that seem completely isolated can be drawn into a profound relationship by an invisible force surrounding them. They do not need to touch immediately. They only need to be close enough to influence each other's motion. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, this image brings to mind the way different parts of the human psyche can exist within us for years without being fully recognized by consciousness. Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps the process of becoming ourselves is also a slow convergence. We do not wake up one morning and suddenly become our authentic selves. We move toward that self through experiences, failures, contradictions, and questions that do not always have immediate answers. Supermassive black holes can take an enormous amount of time to reach the final stages of their merger. And this is where the story becomes especially fascinating. During the early stages, their movement can be extremely slow. But as the distance between them becomes smaller, the emission of gravitational waves becomes increasingly important. Energy is carried away from the system in the form of ripples in the fabric of space-time. Eventually, the two black holes may merge into a single, larger black hole. Pause for a moment and feel the strangeness of that idea. Space-time, which we often imagine as an unmoving stage, is not truly motionless. It can ripple. It can carry information about mergers occurring across enormous distances. An event that happened in the distant past can create waves that travel through the universe and, millions or billions of years later, reach Earth. An extraordinarily faint disturbance can carry the story of two massive objects that once orbited one another in the darkness. It makes us think of memory. In depth psychology, the past does not necessarily disappear simply because we can no longer see it. An experience that has already ended can still influence the way we respond to the present. A childhood fear can quietly affect a decision made many years later. A seemingly careless remark can become a belief we carry throughout our lives. Like gravitational waves, these influences may be subtle, but they can still carry information about an event that happened long ago. And sometimes, what exhausts us is not the event itself, but the ripples of an event that has already ended. There are people who left our lives long ago but still influence the way we love. There are failures that ended years ago but still live inside our fear of trying again. There are wounds that are no longer happening, yet the mind continues to react as though they are happening right now. Jung was deeply interested in such unconscious forces because he understood that what we cannot see can still profoundly influence conscious life. But just as a black hole cannot be understood simply by looking at its darkness, a human being cannot be understood only through outward behavior. Perhaps that is why the journey of two black holes toward eventual merger carries such powerful symbolic meaning. Each of us contains different parts: reason and emotion, light and darkness, what we want others to see, and what we try to hide even from ourselves. Jung called the part pushed outside the image we try to maintain the shadow. It is not simply the bad within us. It can contain emotions, needs, abilities, or aspects of personality that we have not yet learned to accept. If we continually run from a part of ourselves, life can become a silent internal conflict. But if we become calm enough to look at it, recognize it, and understand where it comes from, seemingly opposing parts can begin to integrate. This does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming more whole. In the universe, the merger of two black holes does not create an object that is simply identical to either of the original objects. It creates a new state. A new structure emerges after a long process of interaction, energy loss, and transformation. Perhaps human beings are like this too. After years of struggling with ourselves, we do not necessarily return to the person we once were. We become someone different, someone who understands themselves more deeply. And when the two black holes finally merge, an enormous amount of energy is released in the form of gravitational waves. The universe seems to remember that moment through a disturbance traveling across space. Once again, the image allows us to look at life with greater gentleness. Your struggles do not become meaningless simply because no one else can see them. The quiet changes happening inside you are still real changes. Perhaps no one notices that you have become more patient, calmer, or more self-aware. Perhaps no one knows how long it took you to move through a particular pain. But that does not make the journey any less important. The universe does not hurry. Enormous black holes can take millions of years to reach the moment of merger. Galaxies can take hundreds of millions of years to restructure themselves. And human beings have the right to take time, too. So if tonight you feel that you have not yet become the person you want to be, give yourself a little peace. You do not need to complete the entire journey in one night. Some transformations need time. Some questions do not need answers today. Lie down. Relax your body. Let your breathing slow. Somewhere far away, supermassive black holes are still moving through the darkness. Gravitational ripples are still traveling across the universe. And somewhere, an ancient signal may still be making its way toward us. You are on a journey like that too. There is no need to hurry. You do not need to know exactly what tomorrow will bring. Just keep moving forward, slowly and gently, because sometimes the deepest forms of growth make no sound at all. Colliding galaxy clusters and the mystery of dark matter. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that somewhere so distant that light needs billions of years to find its way to us. Two enormous galaxy clusters are crashing into one another. There is no explosion that human ears could hear. No ground shaking beneath our feet. Yet, an enormous region of space-time is undergoing a violent encounter. Thousands of galaxies, vast oceans of hot gas, and an immense amount of dark matter are all taking part in a cosmic dance that humanity can observe only through faint traces left behind. This is one of those scenes that reminds us that the universe is not only vast, it also operates according to laws far beyond our everyday intuition. And when we look at colliding galaxy clusters, perhaps we are also seeing something deeply familiar within our own minds. Sometimes, the most important things are precisely the things we cannot directly see. A galaxy cluster can contain hundreds or even thousands of galaxies, along with enormous quantities of hot gas and a mysterious form of matter known as dark matter. When two galaxy clusters approach one another, gravity pulls them into an interaction that can last millions of years. Individual galaxies may appear to be colliding, but in reality, the distances between stars are so vast that direct star-to-star collisions are extremely rare. The material that experiences the most dramatic disruption is the hot gas between the galaxies. When these streams of gas collide, they create enormous shock waves, heating the material to temperatures of tens of millions of degrees. If we could somehow stand there, which, of course, humans cannot, we would not witness a collision like two objects crashing together on Earth. Instead, we would see an enormous region of space being transformed by gravity, heat, and motion. But the strangest part lies in something almost invisible. Dark matter does not emit light, nor does it reflect light in the way ordinary matter does. For this reason, we cannot directly see it with optical telescopes. We know it exists primarily through its gravitational effects. When two galaxy clusters collide, the hot gas interacts strongly with itself and slows down, while the galaxies and dark matter can continue along different trajectories. This separation between the visible gas and the mass inferred through gravity has become one of the most famous pieces of evidence used by scientists to study the nature of dark matter. There is something particularly beautiful about this. We often assume that in order to know something exists, we must be able to see it. But the universe teaches us a different lesson. Some things are not visible before our eyes, yet they leave traces powerful enough for us to recognize their presence. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality." The shadow in Jungian psychology is not simply something evil. It represents parts of ourselves that consciousness is unwilling or unable to fully acknowledge. At a symbolic level, dark matter can evoke a similar image, an invisible component that nevertheless has a profound influence on the structure we can observe. Of course, we should not equate dark matter with Jung's shadow in a scientific sense. Dark matter is an astrophysical problem, while the shadow is a psychological concept. But when we listen to this story at night, the symbolic resemblance can open a quiet space for reflection. The human mind also contains regions that are not easy to see: forgotten memories, suppressed emotions, fears we try to disguise by giving them another name. They may not appear clearly within conscious awareness, yet they can sometimes influence how we choose, love, become angry, and respond to life. Colliding galaxy clusters, therefore, are not merely natural laboratories for physics. They are enormous cosmic records in which every movement leaves a trace. Astronomers can observe light from galaxies, radiation from hot gas, and the distribution of mass through gravitational lensing. They then combine these pieces of information to reconstruct a story that unfolded long before Earth as we know it even existed. The light we see today may have left that distant region billions of years ago, which means that when we look at a distant galaxy cluster, we are not truly seeing its present. We are seeing a memory of the universe. Perhaps this is one of the gentlest gifts astronomy can offer us before we fall asleep. The events taking place in the universe do not need to be fully understood to inspire wonder. We can simply know that somewhere, structures larger than any city, nation, or civilization are slowly moving through the darkness. Collisions that last millions of years may be only a brief moment in the universe's long history. And when we think about that, some of the small conflicts in our own lives can also be viewed from a different distance. There are collisions that make us feel as though everything is falling apart. But the universe does not always treat destruction as an ending. Old structures can transform into new ones. Compressed streams of gas can become places where stars are born. A disrupted system can create the conditions for a new form of order. Jung once wrote in the Red Book, "In the end, you must not try to escape from the world, but to live in it." Perhaps these words remind us that growth does not always mean avoiding the chaos within us. Sometimes it means learning to sit quietly beside it, observe it, and allow time to do its work. So tonight, as the image of colliding galaxy clusters slowly fades into the distance of your imagination, let it remind you that not everything important can be seen. There are invisible forces holding the universe together, and within us, there are also quiet depths that we do not need to fully understand today. You do not need to answer every question before going to sleep. You do not need to resolve everything that remains unfinished. Let those distant galaxy clusters continue moving through the darkness, slowly and peacefully. And you, relax your shoulders. Breathe in gently, then breathe out. The universe is still moving. You are allowed to rest. The highest energy particles in the universe. Try to imagine that. Right now, above the night sky outside your window, Earth is constantly receiving invisible visitors from some of the most distant regions of the universe. They are not glowing meteors. They are not rays of light that the human eye can see. They are tiny particles known as cosmic rays, traveling through space with energies so immense that even the most powerful particle accelerators built by humanity can seem modest by comparison. Every second, our atmosphere is being penetrated by particles like these. They come from places we may never be able to visit, carrying traces of stellar explosions, rapidly rotating neutron stars, supernova remnants, and violent regions surrounding enormous black holes. The strange thing is that we do not directly see most of these particles. When a high-energy cosmic ray crashes into Earth's atmosphere, it collides with particles in the air and creates a particle shower, a cascade of secondary particles spreading downward through the atmosphere. A single particle can initiate an entire invisible waterfall of matter. In that moment, the sky above us becomes a gigantic natural laboratory, where the laws of physics are being tested at energy levels that humanity can barely reproduce. But the most fascinating question is not how powerful these particles are. It is, where did they come from? This remains one of the great mysteries of astrophysics. For lower energy cosmic rays, we can associate them with many different sources. But when we look at the most extreme cosmic rays, the story becomes far more difficult. Charged particles are deflected by magnetic fields throughout the galaxy, bending their trajectories so that their paths no longer point directly back to where they originated. So when one of these particles finally reaches Earth's atmosphere, it is like a tiny piece of paper blown by the wind across many different landscapes before finally landing at our feet. We can read its traces, but we cannot easily determine exactly where its journey began. Scientists suspect that some of these extraordinarily energetic particles may be associated with the most violent environments in the universe, supernova remnants, where shock waves from the deaths of massive stars accelerate particles, neutron stars, tiny objects with unimaginable density, and enormous magnetic fields, active galactic nuclei, intensely bright regions surrounding supermassive black holes, and relativistic jets, streams of matter traveling at speeds close to that of light. Imagine a particle so tiny that it is almost impossible to conceive of its scale, carrying within it the energy of a colossal cosmic event. It travels through space for millions or billions of years and eventually enters the atmosphere of a tiny planet. It does not know what Earth is. It does not know that human beings are sleeping beneath the sky. It simply continues along its path according to physical laws that existed long before we appeared. And this is where the perspective of Carl Jung can help us see the story through another layer of meaning. Jung devoted considerable attention to those parts of the mind that exist beyond conscious awareness. He once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." In Jung's context, this idea turns our attention back toward ourselves. Things that appear to come from outside can sometimes become mirrors of our inner world. cosmic rays can also be seen as a powerful, symbolic image. They come from places we cannot directly see, yet they leave traces in the world we can observe. The human mind works in a similar way. There are memories, fears, desires, and conflicts that may not appear clearly in consciousness, yet they can still influence the way we think and behave. They are like invisible particles traveling through the sky of our inner world, eventually creating an emotional shower whose origin we do not immediately understand. This is also why Jung did not view self-discovery simply as a search for pleasant things. Individuation, the process of becoming a more whole human being, requires us to gradually recognize the parts of ourselves that have been neglected. There are things we want to keep in the light of consciousness, but there are also things that remain in the darkness, in places we rarely want to look. The universe reminds us that invisible does not mean non-existent, a clear moment when we can say, everything has begun. There are only two galaxies, slowly moving toward one another, their gravitational orbits gradually changing, their stars being disturbed, and their gas and dust stretched into long streams across space. And at the center of each galaxy, two supermassive black holes also begin moving closer together. A journey like this can last millions, or even hundreds of millions of years. Through human eyes, that is almost an eternity. But to the universe, it is merely another chapter in the long history of galactic evolution. And perhaps it is this slowness that makes the story especially fitting for a quiet night. It reminds us that not every important transformation needs to happen quickly. Some of the most meaningful changes within us take years, even decades, before one day we suddenly realize that we have become a different person. As the two galaxies enter one another's gravitational influence, gravity begins rewriting the structure of both. Stars rarely collide directly, because the distances between them are immense. Yet the entire system can be stretched, twisted, and rearranged. At the center of each galaxy, there is often a supermassive black hole, with a mass millions or even billions of times greater than that of the Sun. As the two galaxies gradually merge, their central black holes do not remain still. Through gravitational interactions with their surrounding environment, they can lose energy and slowly move closer together. Eventually, under the right conditions, they can form a binary black hole system, orbiting one another in a gravitational dance that human eyes could never directly observe. There is something beautiful about this image. Two objects that seem completely isolated can be drawn into a profound relationship by the invisible force surrounding them. They do not need to touch immediately. They only need to be close enough to influence one another's movement. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, this image reminds us of the way different parts of the human psyche can exist within us for long periods without being consciously recognized. Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps becoming who we truly are is also a very slow process of convergence. We do not wake up one morning and suddenly become our authentic selves. We move toward that person through experiences, failures, contradictions, and questions that do not always have immediate answers. Supermassive black holes can take an enormous amount of time to reach the final stage of their journey. And this is where the story becomes especially fascinating. In the early stages, their motion may be extremely slow, but as the distance between them decreases, the emission of gravitational waves becomes increasingly important. Energy is carried away from the system in the form of ripples in the very fabric of space-time. Eventually, the two black holes may merge into a single, more massive black hole. Take a moment to feel how strange this really is. The space-time we usually imagine as a fixed stage is not completely still. It can ripple. It can carry information about mergers that occurred across enormous cosmic distances. An event that happened in the distant past can create waves that travel through the universe and, millions or billions of years later, reach Earth. an incredibly faint disturbance can carry the story of two massive objects that once orbited one another in darkness. And this makes us think of memory. In depth psychology, the past does not necessarily disappear simply because we can no longer see it. An experience from long ago can continue influencing the way we respond to the present. A childhood fear may quietly affect a decision made many years later. A seemingly insignificant sentence may become a belief that we carry throughout our lives. Like gravitational waves, these influences can be extremely subtle, yet they still carry information about something that happened long ago. And sometimes, what exhausts us is not the event itself, but the ripple of an event that has already ended. There are people who left our lives long ago, but still remain present in the way we love. There are failures that ended years ago but still live inside our fear of trying again. There are wounds that are no longer happening. Yet the mind continues to react as though they are happening right now. Jung was deeply interested in these unconscious parts of the psyche, because he understood that what we cannot see can still exert a powerful influence on conscious life. But just as a black hole cannot be understood simply by looking at its darkness, a human being cannot be understood solely through outward behavior. Perhaps that is why the journey of two black holes toward eventual merger carries such profound symbolic meaning. Each of us contains different parts: reason and emotion, light and darkness, what we want others to see, and what we try to hide from ourselves. Jung called the part of ourselves that falls outside the image we try to maintain the shadow. The shadow is not simply the bad part of us. It can contain emotions, needs, abilities, or aspects of our personality that we have not yet learned to accept. If we constantly run away from a part of ourselves, life can become a quiet, internal conflict. But if we become calm enough to look at it, recognize it, and understand where it comes from, those seemingly opposing parts can gradually begin to integrate. This does not mean becoming perfect. It simply means becoming more whole. In the universe, the merger of two black holes does not create an object identical to either of the original two. It creates a new state. A new structure emerges after a long process of interaction, energy loss, and transformation. Perhaps human beings are like this too. After years of struggling with ourselves, we do not necessarily return to the person we once were. We become someone different, someone who understands themselves more deeply. And when the two black holes finally merge, an enormous amount of energy is released in the form of gravitational waves. The universe seems to remember that moment through a disturbance traveling across space. Once again, this image allows us to look at life with a little more gentleness. Your struggles may not be meaningless simply because no one can see them. The quiet changes taking place inside you are still real changes. Perhaps no one notices that you have become more patient, calmer, or more self-aware. Perhaps no one knows how long it took you to move through a particular pain. But that does not make your journey any less important. The universe does not hurry. Massive black holes can take millions of years to reach the moment of merger. Galaxies can take hundreds of millions of years to reshape themselves. And human beings have the right to need time, too. So if tonight you feel that you have not yet become the person you want to be, try giving yourself a little peace. You do not have to complete the entire journey in one night. Some transformations need time. Some questions do not need answers today. Lie down, relax your body, and allow your breathing to slow. Somewhere very far away, supermassive black holes are still moving through the darkness. Gravitational waves are still traveling across the universe. And somewhere, an ancient signal may still be making its way toward us. You are on a journey like that, too. There is no need to hurry. You do not need to know exactly who you will become tomorrow. Just keep moving forward, slowly and gently. Because sometimes, the deepest growth makes no sound at all. Galaxy cluster collisions and the secret of dark matter. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that, somewhere so distant, that light takes billions of years to find its way to us. Two enormous galaxy clusters are rushing toward one another. There is no explosion that human ears could hear, no ground shaking beneath our feet, and yet an immense region of space-time is undergoing a violent collision. Thousands of galaxies, vast oceans of hot gas, and enormous amounts of dark matter are all participating in a dance that humanity can observe only through the faint traces left behind. It is one of those cosmic scenes that reminds us that the universe is not only enormous, but also governed by laws far beyond our everyday intuition. And when we look at colliding galaxy clusters, perhaps we are also looking at something strangely familiar within our own minds. Sometimes, the most important things are precisely the things we cannot directly see. A galaxy cluster can contain hundreds, even thousands, of galaxies, along with enormous quantities of hot gas and a mysterious form of matter known as dark matter. When two galaxy clusters approach one another, gravity draws them into an interaction that can unfold over millions of years. Individual galaxies may appear to be colliding, but in reality, the distances between stars are so enormous that direct star-to-star collisions are extremely rare. The component that experiences the most dramatic disturbance is the hot gas between the galaxies. When these streams of gas crash into one another, they create enormous shock waves, heating the material to temperatures of tens of millions of degrees. If we could somehow stand there, which, of course, human beings cannot, we would not witness a collision like two solid objects crashing together on Earth. Instead, we would see an enormous region of space being transformed by gravity, heat, and motion. But the strangest part lies in something almost invisible. Dark matter does not emit light or reflect it in the way ordinary matter does. Because of this, we cannot observe it directly with optical telescopes. We primarily know that it exists because of its gravitational influence. When two galaxy clusters collide, the hot gas interacts strongly and slows down, while the galaxies and dark matter can continue moving along different paths. This separation between the visible gas and the mass inferred from gravitational effects has become one of the most famous lines of evidence used by scientists to investigate the nature of dark matter. There is something profoundly beautiful about this. We often assume that in order to know something exists, we must see it. But the universe teaches us otherwise. Some things remain invisible while still leaving traces strong enough for us to recognize their presence. Carl Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality." The shadow in Jungian psychology is not simply something evil. It represents aspects of ourselves that consciousness does not want, or is not yet able, to acknowledge. And at a symbolic level, dark matter can evoke a similar image, an invisible component that nevertheless has a profound influence on the structure we can observe. Of course, dark matter should not be equated scientifically with Jung's shadow. Dark matter belongs to astrophysics, while the shadow is a psychological concept. But when we listen to this story at night, the symbolic resemblance can open a quiet space for reflection. The human mind also contains regions that are difficult to see, forgotten memories, suppressed emotions, fears we try to disguise by giving them another name. They may not appear clearly within conscious awareness, yet they can influence the way we choose, love, become angry, and respond to life. Colliding galaxy clusters are therefore not merely natural laboratories for physics. They are enormous records of the universe, where every movement leaves a trace. Astronomers can observe light from galaxies, radiation from hot gas, and the distribution of mass through gravitational lensing. They can then combine all these fragments of information to reconstruct a story that began long before Earth knew it existed. The light we see today may have left that distant region billions of years ago. This means that when we look at a distant galaxy cluster, we are not truly seeing its present. We are seeing a memory of the universe, Perhaps this is one of the gentlest things astronomy can offer us before we fall asleep. The universe does not need to be completely understood in order to fill us with wonder. We only need to know that somewhere out there, structures larger than any city, nation, or civilization are moving slowly through the darkness. Collisions lasting millions of years may be only a moment in the vast history of the universe. And when we think about that, some of the conflicts in our own lives can also be viewed from a different distance. There are collisions that make us feel as though everything is falling apart. But the universe does not always treat destruction as an ending. Old structures can transform into new ones. Compressed clouds of gas can become nurseries for new stars. A disturbed system can create the conditions for a new order to emerge. Jung once wrote in the Red Book, "In the end, you must not try to escape from the world, but to live in it." Perhaps those words remind us that growing does not always mean avoiding the chaos within us. Sometimes it means learning to sit quietly beside it, observe it, and allow time to do its work. So tonight, as the image of those colliding galaxy clusters slowly fades into the distance of your imagination, let them remind you that not everything important can be seen. There are invisible forces holding the universe together, and within you, there are also quiet layers that you do not need to understand completely today. You do not have to answer every question before falling asleep. You do not have to solve everything that remains unfinished. Let those distant galaxy clusters continue moving through the darkness, slowly and peacefully. And you, relax your shoulders, breathe in gently, and breathe out. The universe is still moving. You are allowed to rest. The highest energy particles in the universe. Try to imagine that, right now, above the night sky outside your window, Earth is constantly receiving invisible visitors from some of the most distant regions of the universe. They are not glowing meteors. They are not rays of light that the human eye can see. They are tiny particles of matter known as cosmic rays, traveling through space with energies so enormous that even the most powerful particle accelerators built by humanity can seem modest by comparison. Every second, our atmosphere is being penetrated by particles like these. They come from places we may never visit, carrying traces of exploding stars, rapidly rotating neutron stars, supernova remnants, and violent environments surrounding enormous black holes. The strange thing is that we do not directly see most of these particles. When a high-energy cosmic ray crashes into Earth's atmosphere, it collides with particles in the air and creates a particle shower, a cascade of secondary particles spreading downward through the atmosphere. A single particle can initiate an entire invisible waterfall of matter. In that moment, the sky above us becomes something like a gigantic natural laboratory, where the laws of physics are tested at energy levels that humanity struggles to reproduce. But the most fascinating question is not how powerful these particles are. It is, where did they come from? This remains one of the great mysteries of astrophysics. For lower energy cosmic rays, we can associate them with many different sources. But for the most extreme cosmic rays, the story becomes far more difficult. Charged particles are deflected by magnetic fields within the galaxy, bending their trajectories so that their paths no longer point directly back toward their origins. So when one of these particles finally reaches Earth's atmosphere, it is somewhat like a tiny piece of paper carried by the wind across many different landscapes. Before finally landing at our feet, we can read the traces it leaves behind, but we cannot easily determine exactly where its journey began. Scientists suspect that some of these extraordinarily powerful particles may be associated with the most violent environments in the universe. Supernova remnants, where shock waves from the deaths of massive stars accelerate particles. Neutron stars, tiny objects with extraordinary density and powerful magnetic fields. Active galactic nuclei, intensely luminous regions surrounding supermassive black holes. Or relativistic jets, streams of matter traveling at speeds approaching that of light. Imagine a particle so tiny that its scale is almost impossible to comprehend, carrying within it the energy of a gigantic cosmic event. It crosses the vastness of space for millions or billions of years. Then, eventually, it enters the atmosphere of a tiny planet. It does not know what Earth is. It does not know that human beings are sleeping beneath that sky. It simply continues its journey according to physical laws that existed long before we appeared. And this is where Carl Jung's perspective can help us see the story through another layer of meaning. Jung devoted considerable attention to the parts of the mind that exist beyond conscious awareness. He once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." In Jung's context, this idea turns our attention back toward ourselves. Things that appear outside us can sometimes become mirrors of the inner world. Cosmic rays can also be viewed as a powerful symbolic image. They come from places we cannot directly see, yet they leave traces in a world we can observe. The human mind can work in much the same way. There are memories, fears, desires, and conflicts that do not appear clearly in consciousness, yet they can still influence how we think and behave. They are like invisible particles moving through the sky of the inner world, eventually creating an emotional shower whose origins we may not immediately understand. This is one reason Jung did not see self-discovery as simply a search for pleasant things. Individuation, the process of becoming a more whole human being, requires us to gradually recognize the parts of ourselves that have been neglected. There are things we want to keep within the light of consciousness, but there are also things that remain in the darkness, where we rarely want to look. The universe reminds us that invisible does not mean non-existent. We cannot see dark matter directly, yet we recognize its gravitational influence. We cannot directly observe many cosmic rays, yet we can detect the particle showers they create in the atmosphere. And in Jungian psychology, we may not consciously recognize certain parts of ourselves, yet those parts can still leave traces in our dreams, emotions, choices, and seemingly insignificant reactions. Perhaps the most astonishing thing is that a cosmic ray can travel across immense distances without knowing where it is going. It simply continues its journey. Human beings are different. We always want to know where we are going, why we exist, and what meaning lies behind everything that happens. But sometimes, before sleep, we do not need all the answers. You can simply lie still and imagine that above you, in the infinite darkness, high-energy particles are still racing through the universe. Some may have begun their journeys in the remnants of stars that died long ago. Some may have crossed regions of space that took billions of years for even light to traverse. And some may have come from sources that science has not yet fully identified. There is something beautiful about that, because it reminds us that the world still contains mysteries that do not need to be solved immediately. You do not need to solve every mystery of your own life tonight. Questions without answers can rest for a while. Unfinished things can wait until tomorrow. Thoughts racing through your mind can slow down, just as a particle eventually crosses an enormous stretch of empty space. Breathe in slowly and breathe out gently. Somewhere far away, the universe is still sending particles of extraordinary energy into the darkness. And here, on a tiny planet, floating through the infinite, you can allow yourself to rest. You do not need to understand everything. You do not need to control everything. Just close your eyes and let this night pass peacefully. Destruction is also creation, the eternal cycle of the universe. There is a gentle paradox at the heart of the universe. What we call death is sometimes the beginning of another form of life. While a star is shining, it may seem as though it is simply fulfilling its own purpose. But one day, when the reactions within its core can no longer withstand the force of gravity, it begins the final stage of its journey. For human beings, death often evokes feelings of loss, endings, and separation. But the universe does not see death in quite the same way. Dying stars do not simply disappear, they return matter to space. The elements created within their interiors are released into the interstellar environment, mixing with gas and dust. And one day, that material may become the raw ingredients for new stars, new planets, and perhaps even life itself. So when we look deeply into the history of the universe, we begin to recognize a seemingly paradoxical truth. Destruction and creation are not always opposing forces. Sometimes they are simply two stages of the same cycle. Imagine a massive star that has existed for millions of years. For most of its life, it maintains a balance between two forces: gravity, pulling all of its matter inward, and the pressure produced by nuclear reactions, pushing outward. That balance allows the star to exist. But when the appropriate fuel in its core begins to run out, the balance starts to collapse. The stellar core contracts, the outer layers can be expelled, and a supernova may occur. For a brief period, a star can release an enormous amount of energy while scattering elements throughout space. Those elements do not disappear. They become part of vast clouds of material drifting between the stars. And then, millions of years later, gravity begins its work again. Clouds of gas and dust can collapse. Denser regions form. Temperatures rise. A new star may begin to emerge. The extraordinary thing is that some of the material from the old star can become material within the new one. The death of one generation of stars is therefore not entirely an ending. It is more like the universe dismantling an old form so that its components can be used to create something new. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "The meeting with the unconscious must be a very long process." Those words describe the psychological journey of a human being. But placed beside the cycles of the universe, they evoke a beautiful image. Deep transformation rarely happens in one single moment. It unfolds through stages, layers, periods of collapse and reconstruction. In the mind, just as in the universe, some things must end before a new form can appear. One particularly powerful example is the collision of two neutron stars. These are extraordinarily dense remnants of stars that have already died. When two such objects lose energy and spiral closer together, they can eventually merge in a violent event. The neutron-rich environment created during such a merger can drive the R process, a process responsible for producing many heavy elements. Gold, platinum, and other heavy elements can be formed in these extreme environments. Later, the ejected material mixes back into space. Think about that as you prepare to sleep. Perhaps an atom within your body once belonged to an ancient star. Perhaps the elements that make up the world around you once existed inside a star that died long before Earth was formed. We often imagine ourselves as separate from the universe. But the chemistry of our bodies tells a different story. We do not stand outside the universe. We are part of its material history. And it is not only stars that experience this cycle. Galaxies can interact and collide as well. Two galaxies can take hundreds of millions of years to complete an interaction. Individual stars rarely collide directly, but the gas and dust between them can become strongly compressed. Dense regions can trigger new bursts of star formation. Old structures can stretch into enormous tidal tails. The familiar shape of a galaxy can be transformed, and from that chaos, new stars can emerge. This is one of the most beautiful images in astronomy. Chaos does not necessarily create only more chaos. Sometimes, it creates the conditions for a new order. Jung once wrote in Psychological Types, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Perhaps, on the journey of being human, those words carry a profound meaning. In order to become ourselves, we sometimes have to pass through periods in which the old version of ourselves no longer fits. An old belief may collapse. A relationship may end. A plan that once mattered deeply may no longer make sense. An image of ourselves that we once struggled to protect may slowly disappear. These moments can be frightening because they feel like destruction, but from a sufficient distance, they may simply be transitional stages. This does not mean that every loss is good or that every form of suffering is necessary. Jung did not advocate romanticizing pain, but depth psychology reminds us that human beings have the capacity to transform difficult experiences into greater self-understanding. An ending can open a new question. A loss can force us to reconsider what we truly value. An empty space can become room for something new to emerge. The universe does not hurry. A star can take millions of years to be born, live, and die. A cloud of gas can require an enormous amount of time to collapse into a new star. A galaxy can take hundreds of millions of years to change its shape after an interaction. Yet we, human beings who may live only a few decades, often expect everything to be resolved immediately. Perhaps tonight, we can learn something from the rhythm of the universe. Not everything that is falling apart needs to be repaired immediately. Not every empty space needs to be filled. Not every ending needs to be understood today. Some processes simply need time, just as the material of a dead star needs time before it can become part of another star. Sometimes our own experiences need time before we understand how deeply they have changed us. And as you lie down tonight, imagine the clouds of gas drifting between the stars. Somewhere, a star is dying. Somewhere else, a new star is beginning to form. A galaxy is changing its shape. A heavy element is being created. In a distant cosmic collision, everything is moving, transforming, ending, beginning again. Nothing remains still forever. And perhaps that is precisely what makes the universe so peaceful. Because if the universe can accept its own cycles, birth, radiance, dissolution, and becoming part of something new, then perhaps we can also allow ourselves to rest within the things that remain unfinished. You do not need to know what tomorrow will become. You only need to know that the journey is still continuing. Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out gently. And let the distant stars continue telling their stories in the darkness. Perhaps somewhere, from the fragments of a dead star, a new world is beginning to form. And perhaps, in the stillness of tonight, some small part of you is quietly beginning again. The extremes of the universe and the journey into sleep. Let tonight come to a close with a very slow journey. A journey that takes us from the most violent places in the universe back to the quiet room where you are lying now. Throughout this journey, we have traveled through explosions capable of releasing enormous amounts of energy in just a few seconds. Watched stars die and return their material to space. Listen to invisible signals from neutrinos, mysterious radio bursts known as FRBs, and gravitational waves rippling through space-time. We have witnessed extreme objects such as neutron stars, magnetars, and black holes, transforming the very structure of the universe. But the farther we travel, the more we may come to realize something very simple. The universe is so vast that the existence of each human being seems like nothing more than an incredibly small moment. And strangely enough, that sense of smallness can bring a profound sense of peace. We began with events that unfold over periods of time almost impossible to imagine. Some gamma-ray bursts last only a few seconds, or even less. Some violent eruptions on magnetars release enormous amounts of energy. Some mergers between compact objects take place during the final moments before the objects combine. But at the other end of the scale, there are processes that unfold over millions, hundreds of millions, or even billions of years. Two galaxies can interact over a period longer than the entire history of human civilization. Two supermassive black holes can slowly move toward one another, following a galactic merger. And gravitational waves from those distant events can take enormous amounts of time to cross the darkness before finally reaching Earth. What makes all of these stories so remarkable is that they do not need to be here for us to know that they once happened. The universe sends us messages in many different languages. Light carries images of distant stars. Neutrinos can escape from the deepest regions of a collapsing stellar core. Radio waves bring flashes of information from enormous distances, and gravitational waves do not carry images in the conventional sense. Instead, they bring us ripples in space-time itself. Each signal is a piece of a larger puzzle, and all we have to do is sit here on a tiny planet and patiently listen. There is something beautiful about the way we explore the universe. We cannot see the entire story, but we can learn to listen to the traces it leaves behind, and that makes us think about the inner world within ourselves. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Who looks outside? Dreams. Who looks inside? Awakes." When we look outward, we can become absorbed in countless images, events, and movements of the world. But when we turn our attention inward, we begin to notice what is happening within us. Perhaps on an ordinary day, we are also like miniature universes. On the outside, there is work, responsibility, conversations, messages, and unfinished plans. But inside, there is an entirely different world. Memories, fears, hopes, regret, and questions that have no immediate answers. And just like the universe, not everything inside us needs to be seen immediately. An emotion can be like a flash of light. A memory can be like the light from a star that died long ago, but only today finally reaches our consciousness. A dream can be like a faint signal from a distant region that we are too distracted to hear during the day. Perhaps that is why sleep has such a special role. When we stop trying to control everything, the mind has an opportunity to reorganize things that felt chaotic during the day. We do not need to solve our entire life before placing our head on the pillow. Sometimes, what we need most is simply to give ourselves a moment of silence. Remember what we have witnessed throughout this journey. A dying star does not simply disappear. It can release elements that eventually become material for future generations of stars. Two neutron stars can collide and produce heavy elements. A supernova can heat and compress its surroundings, helping create conditions for new stars to form. A galactic collision can destroy an old structure while simultaneously triggering new regions of star formation. Even the most violent events do not always mean destruction alone. They can be part of the process of creation. And perhaps this is one of the deepest lessons the universe can offer us before we fall asleep. In life, we often fear change. We fear something familiar coming to an end. We fear losing someone. We fear a plan failing. We fear that a chapter of our life is falling apart without knowing what will come next. But the universe continually shows us that endings and beginnings are not always two separate events. They can be two sides of the same process. Jung once wrote in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Perhaps tonight, those words can become a gentle reminder. We do not need to understand everything hidden deep within our minds, but we can begin by allowing ourselves to listen. Listen to the emotions we usually ignore during the day. Listen to the things that make our hearts feel heavy. And listen to the small things that quietly make us happy. Then, like an astronomer patiently waiting for a signal from a distant celestial object, we can learn to be patient with ourselves. Not every question needs an answer tonight. Not every problem needs a decision right now. Not every sadness needs to be pushed away. Some things simply need to be set down. Tomorrow, we can pick them up again if we need to. But for now, let your mind begin to slow down. Imagine that you are standing beneath a perfectly clear night sky. There is no noise from the city, no work waiting for you, only the vast darkness above. Far away, stars are still being born and dying. Black holes are still merging. Gravitational waves are still traveling through space. High-energy particles are still moving through the universe. Galaxies are still drifting through the darkness. The universe does not need you to stay awake for it to continue existing. and you do not need to stay awake to solve everything. For the next few hours, let the world continue moving without your control. Relax your shoulders, relax your hands, relax your face. Breathe in slowly, and breathe out gently. You may begin to feel your body becoming heavier. Your thoughts may begin to slow down. The sounds around you may begin to fade into the distance. And if today was a difficult day, remember that even stars have moments when they can no longer continue existing in their old form. But that ending does not make their story meaningless. Their material continues its journey. Their light continues traveling through space. Their traces continue to exist. Perhaps our lives are like that too. One day, the things that worry us today may become nothing more than distant memories. The difficulties that seem enormous now may eventually become only a small part of the larger story of our lives. And right now, you do not need to go anywhere. Just stay here, in the quietness of the night, beneath the sky of a universe so vast that we cannot fully measure it. Let that feeling of smallness not frighten you. Let it set you free. Because if the universe can continue unfolding for billions of years without needing us to control it, perhaps we can allow ourselves to rest for a few hours. The stars will continue to shine. The galaxies will continue to move. Distant signals will continue crossing the darkness. And you, sleep deeply. Let tonight become a moment when you do not have to prove anything. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be strong. You do not have to know what tomorrow will bring. Just close your eyes and let the universe lull you into stillness. May you have a deep and peaceful sleep. And when morning returns, may you wake with a lighter mind, a calmer heart, and the feeling that no matter how small you may be, you are still a wonderful part of the vast story of the universe.